front row.
Okay, Drew. So Kathy, will she be in here tonight or just you? So notes will be just taken off of recording or like we always have? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Kathy, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Awesome. Eldon, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. Welcome everybody to our Planning Commission meeting for July 21st, 2021. It is 5:34. My name is Commissioner Hanson. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. This time, we'll start our agenda this evening with an invocation by Commissioner Shield, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead that after the prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we are thankful to be here this night at this Planning Commission for Washington City. We're thankful for the opportunities we have to serve and for the help that each is to one another. And we're thankful for our community. We're thankful for the opportunities we have to grow and to expand, and pray that that will help us to do so wisely. Pray that we can have unity this night. Pray that we can have peace and harmony, that all will go well, that will do what's best and right for the city. And we pray for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. You'd all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Commissioners, if you haven't noticed, we have a new planning commissioner that was appointed by the city council recently. And Commissioner Tupou, I will give you a little bit of time if you'd like, just introduce yourself to these gentlemen here and whatever you want to know about you, whatever you want us to know about you.
Sure. Latai Tupou. I live in the Washington Fields area. I've been out here for almost 5 years now. I used to serve on the West Valley City Planning Commission with the two Steves, and really happy to be here. I was expecting a call. I didn't get a call, but yeah, I thought that it was the Planning Commission last week. So
Did you show up?
Apparently.
You come down last week and no one was here?
oh, we had to do our 2-minute.
Oh, that one.
presentation.
Yes. Oh, that one. That was
Yeah,
okay.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I saw you there.
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah, you were there. So I thought it was the same group. I thought it was the planning commission the whole time until I was informed. No, that was probably the city council.
Yeah, it was the city council. Yeah.
So very happy to be here. Excited to serve my community. Any
Excellent.
questions?
I'll have a question. Commissioner Tupou, are you related to the Tupou family that has been in Washington for a couple decades?
I have no idea. It would be my husband's side of the family, so he would know. I haven't met them, so I imagine probably no.
Yeah. Very good.
Perfect.
If I just may, Commissioner Hanson, just let everybody know that Commissioner Hanson was reappointed for another 3-year term and as a chairperson, and you will be filling in for Van Fitsomfu. Yeah, that's a hard, he has a Filipino name and always had to write it out phonetically and say it, but you'll finish his term. And I think he was just about 1 year in, about 2 for sure. And then, so we'll go on that, just so everybody kind of knows. That's what happened also last week, is that Commissioner Hanson was reappointed and then she's filling Van's spot that he vacated in May. So, but welcome aboard. Thanks.
That's a good point. When they appointed me as a commissioner, nobody told me either 3 years ago. And nobody told me I was still going. I just showed up and assumed I'm still going tonight. So yeah, that call is a tough one to get, I guess. Yeah, I didn't get a call either. Nor did they tell me I was going to speak last week when I saw you. And that's why I showed up in a t-shirt. But anyway, good to have you. Welcome. You'll be an alternate in our meetings when we have a full commission. And when there is somebody that needs to abstain or is not here, then we'll have you as a full vote member. And you can absolutely participate in any and all the discussions that you'd like to as well. At this time, we'll look for a motion to approve the agenda for July 21st, 2021.
This is Sheil. I would approve the agenda for this evening, July 21st, as it reads.
It's Commissioner Musso. I second that.
I've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved as outlined in front of us. Next, we'll look for an approval of the minutes, and they have been updated to include Commissioner Anderson's comments back to Kathy. So look for a motion once you've had a chance to review those, or any questions or comments. Otherwise, for the approval of the minutes from July 7th.
I'd like to approve them. Wow, I lost it. A motion to approve the minutes. Commissioner Anderson, I'll second.
I've got a first and a second, Commissioner Bullock and Commissioner Anderson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved for July 7th. Number 3, the declaration of any abstentions or conflicts from our planning commissioners this time.
I live within a quarter of a mile of the Heritage Field project, but I plan to vote. I have no financial interest in it. This is Musso.
Do you have any? This is Commissioner Hanson. I live in proximity with no financial interest in 4C and 4E. Item number 4D, I do have a financial interest. Thad, I'll look for your advice on that. My kids have a deposit on the condos there to buy one of those. One of those came out of my bank account, so I'm not sure what I can and can't do, but I'll look for your advice.
The decision to abstain is yours. Your interest you've described is not of ownership, as more of a potential future customer. And I would not interpret that to be a financial conflict of interest in the decision tonight, but if you want to be cautious, you should abstain.
Okay. I think what I'm going to do is, for the record, go ahead and abstain, just to give our new commissioner on her first meeting a chance to vote on something.
Well, she won't be able to because we
Oh,
haven't sworn her in yet. but
dang
We
it.
still have 4.
I won't abstain then. I'll be back voting. Okay. Thank you. Any other abstentions or conflicts of interest with any other agenda items? Okay, at this time, we'll move to agenda item number 4A. This is a final plat. It's consideration and recommendation to the city council for the Brio Phase 4E, located approximately Camino Oso to Brio Parkway. The applicant is Cole West Home. Turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thanks, Commissioner. This is Eldon. I'll be reporting this. As stated previously, this particular subdivision is proposing 33 lots on an area covering 8.443 acres. The specific location of this subdivision is zone plan community development. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal and the final plat, both of which conform to the preliminary plat. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for the Brio Phase 4E subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff on this final plat for 4A? I have none. Nope. If not, I'll look for a motion for an approval or a denial in this.
This is Sheil. I would recommend that, This is Sheil, that I would recommend that we forward to the city council the approval of final plat for the Brio Phase 4E subdivision, consistent with the 3 findings and the 6 conditions, as staff has noted.
Commissioner Anderson, I second.
Got a first by Shield, a second by Anderson. Individual voting, Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The motion passes. We'll send to City Council a recommendation for approval. Item number 4B, this is consideration also of a final plat to recommend to City Council for the Majestic Fields final plat located at 3090 South Washington Fields Road. The applicant is Jason Christensen. Turn the time over to staff at this time.
Thanks, Commissioner. As previously stated, the address there, the applicant is proposing 22 lots on an area covering 10.733 acres. The specific location of this subdivision is zoned R110. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal and the final plat, both of which conform to the approved preliminary plat. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for the Majestic Fields subdivision to City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, any questions or additional comments for staff? If not, same thing. I'll look for a motion on this item.
This is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we approve the final plat for the Majestic Field subdivision located approximately Washington Fields Road and 3090 South, and forward this on to the City Council for approval with the 3 findings and 5 conditions that the staff has outlined.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
I've got a first by Musso. I've got a second by Bullock. Individual voting, Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. 4B passes. We'll send to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Item number 4C, consideration and recommendation to the City Council for the Crossroads at Stuckey Farms Phase 3 final plat located at approximately Oxbow and Resolution Drive. The applicant is Carl Larson. Turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thanks, Commissioner. This particular subdivision is proposing 10 lots on an area covering 5.10 acres. The specific location is Zone Planned Community Development. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal and the proposed final plat, both of which conform to the approved preliminary plat. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for the Crossroads at Stuckey Farms Phase 3 subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions.
Thank you, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor if you have any questions or comments on 4C.
Commissioners, can I just make a note? Eldon he kind of forgot, we were talking about, there's actually 18 lots. Just so, for the record, that their application had 10 in one spot and 18 where it counts, where they had to pay for it. So there are 18. Sorry, Eldon, I'm not trying to make you look bad, but this is the one, right, that's got 18 lots, not 10. So
No, you're good. I had a note to make that correction. Thank you.
That's what was approved at preliminary.
yes.
This is Shield. I would recommend that we forward this to the City Council for approval for the final plat for the Crossroads at Stuckey Farms Phase 3. Particular subdivision is proposing 18 lots on the area of 5.10 acres, subject to the 3 findings and 5 conditions.
This is Bullock. I'll second.
I have a first by Commissioner Shield. I have a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting, Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item 4C passes. We'll send that for recommendation for approval to City Council. Move on to item number 4D. This is a recommendation, or considered for recommendation to the City Council for Red Vista condominiums. It's their final plat. It's located at Telegraph Street and 1100 East. The applicant is Red Development of Orem. I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thanks, Commissioner. The applicant is requesting approval of the final plat for Red Vista condominiums. This particular phase is proposing 1 complex, which consists or will consist of 15 condominiums. The entire development will cover a total of 3.69 acres. The specific location of this subdivision is planned unit development residential. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal and the proposed final plat. Both conform to the approved preliminary plat However, our city engineer located some easements on the property that need to be resolved and or accurately reflected on the plat in order for staff to recommend this approval. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend denial of the final plat for the Red Vista condominiums Phase 1 subdivision to the City Council due to easements not being resolved and or accurately reflected on the plat. If these easements are able to be corrected, staff would recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor for questions and comments to staff on this particular item.
So Brandon, are you going to be able to answer all the utility questions? What's the problem? I mean, it was just not marked, or are there actually issues?
Brandon Wright with Public Works. There are some easements that are across the property that they've been working on, and our engineer Steve Hall just brought this up with Eldon, I believe today. Was that correct, Eldon?
Correct. Yeah, it was a couple days ago. Specifically, it's easement 890467, a power line easement. It runs diagonally across the east portion of the parcel. And the overhead power lines seem to be removed. If that easement's no longer needed, we would need that to be abandoned. And then also Steve identified easement 200600320014, kind of lengthy there. And that is the easement running north and south and needs to be modified. So it's running westwardly as well.
So I guess my question is, are these going to be fixable problems, or is this going to put the whole project in jeopardy?
No, it's fixable. And I know that our engineer's been in contact with this firm about this. So I know they're working through it right now. It just wasn't done at this point.
Is the power utility one of those old ones that predated our utility system, the city's utility system?
It is. That's
So one of the challenges is probably just the time it takes to get the right entities aware of and willing to vacate. Such kind of historic easements are not a new thing for our city, and they just take some time to work through. So it might just be a timing thing more than it is a possibility thing.
So is there somebody there who can make a decision? Or if it's an abandoned, I mean, it sounds like nobody's there to make a decision. Or is that the
Well,
problem?
there is somebody there. Those easements have been passed to the owners of the old system. And I shouldn't say old system. They're easements that were given and granted to a prior system that most weren't used. The city now owns the electric utility for this area and for that area, but the city acquired its utility from a prior utility owner that owned a bigger system than what we bought. And part of what the prior owner did is transmission. And so I haven't analyzed this exact easement, but the best likelihood is that it was an easement for future transmission lines or something of that nature for the system that was contemplated, in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And so typically the fact that it hasn't been used is all the evidence we need to get them to understand that, let's vacate this. But that's a process, and sometimes it just takes a while to get a hold of the right company and get it resolved.
So do we approve it with those vacations coming to pass, and let it go to city council, or do we deny this whole thing?
Well, the staff has identified those as hurdles. And so they're not hurdles that this commission ever deals with, though. And so I think you could look at the plat and all the other details that are within your realm and approve it subject to those things being resolved. But it could be some time for resolution.
This is Commissioner Anderson. Would it be more appropriate to table it and give them a chance to work on these easements? Because if we deny it, then it just moves on to city council, and then they're going to end up denying it until it gets done. But if we table it, at least gives them a little bit of time to work on it.
So tabling it doesn't move it to city council.
Right, that's my
Right.
point. That's why that gives
Approval
them some
or
time to work on it.
denial goes to the city council, and the city council is going to run into the same hurdles that are
Right.
being discussed right now. Is there an applicant representative that can indicate what they would prefer? Has staff had any feedback? with
Yeah,
that?
I'm here.
Oh, someone's on the phone. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. This is Brady. I'm with Red Vista Development. So yeah, we were aware there's there's easements for the power lines that aren't there anymore. And then there was an easement that went from when it was 3 parcels. There was an easement that went into the development to the north, and it's still there. And so I think, and I'm getting this from our engineer who's just coming back from Zion's right now, but it was still there, and we just need to describe it going, because it was described in each of the 3 parcels as its own little thing. Now that it's 1 parcel, we just have to describe it as one easement going into that, the entrance that we're still going to be using. So it comes in the middle. It's right there coming out of the development that's to our north right now. So we just have to describe that easement properly now that it's all 1 parcel. And so I think that one's going to be easy. The power line one, I don't know how hard that one's going to be to get those vacated, because the power lines are no longer there and they're old and predate the power lines that are there now.
So this is Commissioner Musso. We had a discussion a few meetings ago after the meeting. And I remember talking with Councilman Staley and with Corey Anderson about some of the hurdles that developers face and causes problems. And one of the biggest ones is time. You know, that we sit here and we keep kicking stuff down the road, you know, trying to get them to mitigate minor problems, and they can't move forward with their projects. So, I mean, to me, this power line, the vacated one, doesn't sound like it's a whole lot of an issue. I mean, it needs to be resolved, but, you know, is the developer still able to work on the project, or does this red tag his project in the meantime? Or talk to me.
You're asking me?
Yes, sir.
So the easement is a legal right that is recorded against this parcel that does predate this plat and this plan. Typically, as staff members, we recommend that they not be given approval when those type of legal rights are in the way. In this case, it's not going to be Washington City's utility, power company that has to vacate that easement. It's going to be whatever the ownership entity was that predated our utility. And so to the extent that this is not a big issue, I think you're right, but it is a legal issue. When I say not a big issue, I don't think there's any power use contemplated or planned for that easement location. But the reality is there is an easement that underlies this property, and it is a legal right. And we as a city should expect that property owners clear those up so that we're not approving projects that put them right into conflict with the known and existing legal issues.
So what if the person who owns that easement is deceased?
Well, it's an entity, and those entities have.
So they're going to have heirs or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Commissioner Hanson. So is the worst case scenario, if you will, that there is an easement that has to be granted, which would change the look of the project that we've seen thus far?
Well, there's 2 easements at play. The one is an access and kind of just ingress egress. That is at the control of the landowner. That one will be simple. They just need to redesign it and replan it with their new parcel. The highway, the power line one, most likely they're going to be contacting an entity that's a lot bigger than Washington City. Even Washington City bought their power utility from, I think it was Rocky Mountain at the time, but Pacificor, but what's now called Rocky Mountain, which is they both provide residential service in our area, but also control all of the transmission, regional transmission. And so whomever and however those easements were transferred as those entities have developed and grown over the years is who this applicant will need to talk with and get an abandonment. the city would support that abandonment, obviously, because we don't need other prior utilities to have easements within our city, although there's a power line, the transmission line that runs through our city right now that is owned and used by the transmission entity.
And this is that diagonal line from the lower left, correct? That's the easement that, I guess that's what I understood it to be. Maybe I understood it incorrectly.
I don't know if the easement that is conflicting is reflected on that plat.
Okay. I thought, did I understand it right that it goes diagonal across the property?
It's on the eastern side over there, which is the right side, yeah.
On the eastern side?
So this one is showing easements that are of record or part of this project. I don't know if it's showing the prior easement that's conflicting with this project.
This is Commissioner Anderson. So I guess so this is a question for the developer. I mean, do you have a preference? I mean, if we, whether we deny it or approve it with conditions, it's going to move to city council. And if the easements are not cleared up by then, there's a good chance that this will get denied, more than likely. Or would you rather we give you 2 weeks to work on this and table it?
Or maybe it gets tabled at city.
We would probably rather if we'd probably rather pull it off the city council agenda if we don't have it cleared up by then. I just did one of these up in Utah County with Pacific Corp, and it was an old easement just like this that was from 1906. And I was surprised how easily, I mean, they said, well, yeah, write this up and bring it up here and we'll sign it. Because it's one that we don't use anymore and we don't plan on using anymore. And it wasn't a big bureaucracy I had to go through. They have a little department for that. But so because it's gone and well gone, we would rather probably, in the interest of time, keep it moving forward and be under the gun for 2 weeks. And if we don't pull it off, we'll pull off planning commission or we'll pull off city council agenda until we have it cleaned up. And then the other one, we have that written and described. It used to come right through the middle of the property. And now we're coming in from 1100 East and coming in and then it pulls in. So we just have to describe that. And so that's easy on our end. Because it crosses all three parcels, all three old parcels.
Just to confirm what was stated, it's the city's experience that when you can get a hold of Pacificor, if that is who the easement holder, which would be my guess. And again, I haven't reviewed that easement document yet. They are easy to work with as far as they're not asking for any payment. They understand that this is a utility area now that's owned by a city, and there's really nothing as far as value to this easement that they hold. Sometimes it's just the process of getting into contact with the right person at Pacificor, which is a really big entity.
This is Commissioner Hanson. So Brady, did I understand you correctly that you're looking for an approval this evening with conditions? And if those conditions can't be rectified before city council, you'll pull it off the agenda?
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt. As of now, this is Eldon. As of now, it's with it being a final plat, it's slated to go for city council on the 28th, next Wednesday. Just to give you an idea.
Get to go to city council next week. All final plats go following.
Okay.
So that only gives them a week.
That's why I was saying.
Yeah.
Well, and just for the commissioners to know, you do not have a meeting on the 4th. So it would be 4 weeks. It would be a month before you'd get it back. So, I mean, if the applicant's willing and he's okay, and he's admitted that on tape, that if he's not ready, we won't put it on a city council meeting until he's ready. I think staff would be probably okay with that. We're not going to put it on. He's agreed to do that till they get resolved.
Okay. That's correct. We'll do that. We'll work on that. And if we don't hit that time, we'll pull it off.
And just make sure that your reasoning for denial is based on the easements, which you want to help the applicant. But as soon as he cleans them up, then I'm sure the council will overturn your thing, because that's what you say. You would recommend approval, but you understand the easement problem. If they get them cleared up, council then could feel free to overturn something to that effect. And they,
Yeah. I think the last thing that we want is to screw up this project. as to cost them time and money by, especially if we don't meet for another month, that really, yeah.
So Drew, I guess, what's the better way to do this? If our intent is to move it to city council, knowing that if it goes to city council and these are not met, then it's going to get denied. Do we approve it with condition that these easements have to be met before approval, or do we deny it and say easements have to be approved before?
Either way will be
Achieves the
okay.
same thing.
I think it's best, I would, and I don't think it's bad in this case to recommend a denial just because, hey, these are serious, we take them, but if they can be resolved, just say we would recommend approval, but because these are in place for the benefit of the city, that I would recommend denial, but if they get them cleaned up, then, kind of like I said, so however you want to.
Just a reminder, commissioners, whatever the recommendation is this evening, it's important if there is a denial to be as specific as we possibly can with as much information as we can for city council to read when they receive this.
Go ahead, Corey.
This Commissioner Anderson, I'll make a motion to deny the request for final plat approval for Red Vista condominiums Phase 1 located at 1100 East Telegraph. The reason for denial is the easements finding number. Which finding is it? Can't remember which finding it is. Because the easements have not been cleared up yet. We would recommend approval to city council if the easements get cleared up before that.
This Sheila, I'd second that.
I've got Kathy, did you get all that or do you need any more information?
No, I've got it. Thank you.
I've got a first by Commissioner Anderson. I've got a second by Commissioner Shield. Individual voting, Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. We will recommend to city council denial on this project based on the findings that have been discussed. Hopefully, Brady, we look forward to having you clear it up. It's not like we were wanting to shut it down, but definitely want to get this fixed. But thanks for being on the phone this evening. We'll move to item number 4E. This is consideration and recommendation to city council for the homesteads at Stuckey Farms, Phase 4, final plat, located approximately Homestead Way and Stuckey Farms Parkway. The applicant is Carl Larson. Turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thanks, Commissioner. This particular subdivision is proposing 14 lots on an area covering 7.02 acres. The specific location of this subdivision is Zone Plan Community Development. Staff has reviewed the request and the final plat, both of which conform to the approved preliminary plat. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for the homesteads at Stuckey Farms Phase 4 subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor for questions for staff.
Eldon, this is Commissioner Musso. Was this, help me with my memory. Is this the one where we had it gated? Part of it was gated, is not? Okay, all right. Drew said no, so thank you.
This is Commissioner Anderson. Since it meets the general plan, the zoning, and the preliminary plat, I make a motion to approve the final plat for homestead at Stuckey Farms Phase 4 with the 5 conditions as noted, and move on to City Council.
This Sheila, I second that.
I've got a first by Commissioner Anderson. I've got a second by Commissioner Shield. Individual voting, Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item 4E, we'll send to City Council for recommendation with approval. Item number 4F, consideration and recommendation to City Council for Washington Vista Phase 3B. It's a final plat located at Sunny Ledge Drive to Scenario Street. The applicant is First Nation Investments and Matt Lowe. Eldon, I'll turn the time over to you for a report.
Thanks, Commissioner. At this particular location, the applicant is proposing 17 lots on an area covering 8.512 acres. The specific location is zoned R110. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal and the final plat, both of which conform to the approved preliminary plat. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for Washington Vista Phase 3B subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor for questions or comments. If there are none at this time, I'll look for a motion as well.
This is Shill. I'd make a motion that we forward this to the city council for approval for the final plat of Washington Vista Phase 3B, proposing 17 lots on an area of about 8.512 acres, subject to the 3 findings and 5 conditions from staff.
This is Commissioner Musso. I second that.
Got a first by Shield, a second by Musso. Individual, Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item 4F passes. We'll send it to City Council, the recommendation for approval. Item number 5A, this is a road dedication. This is consideration to recommend to the City Council for approval, the Countryway Edition. The applicant is Bush and Gudgel, Greg Myers. Turn the time over to staff.
There it is. Sorry, I didn't have it in the proper spot. The applicant is requesting approval of the road dedication plat, and it's actually an extension of an already existing public right of way, which is known as Countryway. What we're doing is the street was originally dedicated as a 50-foot, but we want it to be a 66-foot. So that's what those 2 strips are that they're really hard to see, but the heavier lines, I'll try to zoom in even a little more. It's basically 8 feet on each side of the existing road. Yeah, right there. And then on the other side of the street. So you can see those 225s. That's the original dedication, but it needs to be a 66. So it'll end up being basically 33 feet down from the center. So we did this a little bit to the southwest. And this is just the next piece that's heading northeast of that already existing road. And because there's homes being built on each side, we just got to get those dedications in. So it's just simply adding. It looks strange. It is strange, but it's getting the extra 8 feet for a 66-foot public right of way.
Are the improvements done?
They are. We just got to get it turned over to us.
Question for you. Do the driveways dump onto Countryway? there?
No, sir. Not in this place.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No driveways, only
Time
roads. Even though 66 you can, but there are no driveways in this development. None at all. Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Even at 66
60 is
you
the
can.
cutoff. That's what I was asking.
But at 50, you could have, but no, all the in fact, everything's been preliminary platted, some even finalized,
Everything
but
off the
everything's
backside.
roadway. Everything's on a road coming in or out of every development in here. So no personal driveways.
Drew, how far does this go up? How far will this? It's already
Basically
existing?
out to the landfill. I don't know if
Will
it's
this-
all ours
will
yet,
this- will
but
this connect the landfill to the landfill
Already
road?
it already does in a dirt road
It's dirt. That's what I'm
scenario.
wondering how long before it gets.
Eventually it'll
This is
go up
Commissioner
and
Bullock. Sorry, Kathy.
eventually it'll tie into the landfill road. But as right now, we're just going phase by phase.
So is there another phase that'll be after this?
Yeah, there'll be 2 more.
Yeah, we have this industrial area out here. I'll try to get you can see my little arrow. That's already a platted. It hadn't been finalized yet, right? The industrial,
Yeah,
or has it?
yeah, it's
It's done?
They're working on it right now. It's
Okay.
construction drawings.
So there's just a small strip in between that will be done, but it's still owned by the same developer. So Yeah,
Hey,
so-
Drew, can I speak to that just for a second as well? This is Rick with Bush and Gudgel. That industrial area, it's under construction right now. And so that final plat will be coming in and that roadway will be dedicated with that construction as well. So,
So it will be a complete road all the way to the landfill?
yeah, the countryway portion through that industrial area is part of that, the construction of the industrial, which is underway as we speak. You know, they're working on it now.
Commissioner Bullock, I will say, I don't know if this is paved right here where it dumps onto Landfill Road,
Right.
but it will tie into Landfill Road. And I
it's
don't know if
pretty
it's
close.
paved out this far.
It is.
Is it? I could
It's
say I haven't
It's not a
been,
great paved job, but it is paved.
We
It's
didn't
not
do it.
dirt.
we didn't do
No.
it. Yeah, so but it will end up out there. So this is getting a lot of that done, which
So we're
helps out
just
a ton.
dedicating the extra,
8
16
feet on each side right now, correct?
All right, commissioners, any other questions? And if not, I'll look for a motion.
Does this have to go to city council or not?
Oh, yeah.
This
All
does,
dedications, you know,
Okay.
technically I'm not trying to be harsh, but we really don't have to take road dedications to planning committee. We just like doing it as a courtesy. Just don't be
Waste-
offended.
and wasting our time.
No, it's not. I appreciate it. So, you know, no, I like it because it is a courtesy to help you kind of see how things go and it just helps that process because the only people who can take dedications or, you know, remove easements, you know, abandon them is the city council by state code is that they have to, you know, basically do it. So, but we've just had a courtesy since I've been here as much as we can try to give you road dedications.
So this is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we approve the road dedication plat and sending this on to city council for approval of the extension of the public right of way adjoining the current Countryway City Street. And allow it to be, go from a 50-foot roadway to a 66-foot roadway by extending it out additional 16 feet.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
I've got a first by Commissioner Musso, a second by Commissioner Bullock, individual voting Shield, Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item number 5A passes unanimously. We'll send it to city council with recommendation for approval. On item 6A, this is a public hearing to consider approval of a conditional use permit C-21-07 for a daycare. This one will not be sent to city council. This is for us to decide this evening. Called New Awakenings, located at 2338 South Colatero Circle. Applicant is Dulce Sanchez. I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thank you. As stated, applicant is requesting approval of a CUP to operate the daycare facility out of a home, a residential neighborhood. The daycare will run from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The applicant's requesting a number of 16 children, which is the maximum for an in-home use. They're asking that be approved for this particular daycare facility with the 16 children requested. They will be required to have a second caregiver always on site. So there needs to always be 2 when you have 16. But that's through state law and that would have to be on the premise. So the home will be required to be inspected by the building department and the fire department and given approval for both for this proposed use. The daycare will be held in the home in the designated areas as you see in your reports. Hopefully you kind of seen the sketch here of how everything's kind of laid out within the home. Also, the backyard hopefully is already completely fenced off around it so nobody can get out. A drop off and pickup plan will need to be in place to mitigate any traffic congestion or concerns. We pretty much let them bring that to us. We'll put it in the file. Staff's reviewed the request and has a concern as it relates to the property location itself. Looking at the aerials of the property, it appears that the backyard area is not grassed or any other improvements shown on the property. Since outdoor recreation plays a big part in childcare, staff feels something needs to be done to address the apparent lack of improvement at the residence. So I'll let the applicant address that for you folks. Also, staff got a concern. I think you got an email or from a adjoining property owner across the street. Did you guys get that, or do we need to read it? Okay, we had an issue of getting stuff out, so I think Eldon has it. I'm going to have him read that here in a minute as a concern that popped up to us. And so we'll also let the applicant address that as well after Eldon reads that. So I think, Eldon, I'm done with my particular report. So if you don't mind reading that letter that came to us from somebody that lives in the neighborhood. It is a circle. I think they live somewhere, one of the homes across the street. I don't know if directly or to the right or left a little bit. Go ahead and read that, please.
Eldon, before you do that, let me open up the public hearing on this particular item so we can include that comment. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing for item number 6A. And Eldon, go ahead.
To whom it may concern, this is in response to Brenda Berg using the property located at 2338 South Cotero Circle. This home is across the street from my home where we currently reside. We built our home 25 years ago and have had many good neighbors live in this home. We have enjoyed getting to know the current people who run the daycare, but we're a little saddened to find out it was being used as a business and not as a residence. The family did move there permanently for about a year, but just recently moved out. Currently, they are running the daycare out of that home. This family is a wonderful family, but they weren't the Burr family and have kept things very quiet and out of the way. It has not been a problem with parking or traffic in the past. Recently, there has been more activity there, and we would like to see it kept at a minimum since this is a family neighborhood. Our biggest concern is having a commercial business being ran across the street and it being zoned for residential. We want to keep it a family neighborhood, which is a very reasonable concern. We miss having neighbors there, as well as the safety factor with traffic coming and going from that home. Their daycare should be in a facility that is zoned commercial. It is advertised as a preschool and childcare. Before they moved there, they ran their daycare in Salt Lake. There, they could take up to 16 children. I do not know how many children currently are dropped off each day at this location. Another concern is the amount of people coming and going brings more strangers into our neighborhood. This is a concern for future theft, traffic, and safety issues. We moved to the fields because it was a nice, quiet, and safe area for our family. With the growth surrounding us and the elementary close by, we have to look out for the safety of our neighbors and children. With so many strangers and not knowing who they are brings the safety factor to a different level, one that we don't want to deal with on our street. Our concerns are not pointed at the family, but at the situation. The family running it were not named the Burrs, so that raises another concern if this is something else that is new. We hope you will consider our concern and keep our neighborhood and street a safe place to live. Sincerely, the Brandt and Sharon Cafferty family. Those are all the comments that I have today.
Eldon, thank you. As part of the public comment, if there's anybody here in the chamber that would like to speak regarding this matter, please come forward and do so at this time. Just remember, state your name for the record so Kathy can hear it in the notes, or I'm sorry, Kathy can hear it and put it in the notes correctly. Come on up.
Okay, my name is Dulce Sanchez, and I'm the person applying for the license for the home child care. We've been living in the house for 2 years, this coming August, and we were living with, our daughters were living with us, so they moved, and we moved them, out. So that's why I decided to apply for the license to have the child care that I've been running for 23 years. So my husband and I live there, and we have family in Salt Lake. So we go many weekends, go to Salt Lake to visit the family. And sometimes I go and stay with my daughters too, when my husband is having trainings or something for his job. So I understand that I had to live in a place where I have the childcare. I have that clear, and that's what I'm doing. So I don't see any rules that say that I can't travel on the weekend or that say that I have to sleep there the 7 days of the week. So I think my neighbor is confused. She asked us for if we were moving, and we told her that part of the family were moving. We didn't specify that were our daughters. So about the concern and the, like strangers just driving around in the neighborhood, I understand that. That is not easy when they don't have any kind of business in their neighborhood. I'm just, applying for this business license. If you guys denied it, it's okay with me. If I pass, I just will apply to the state license. I haven't had any problem in any neighborhood. I've been in Salt Lake for 25 years and running the daycare for 23. And this is my first time in in this kind of meeting because West Jordan, they don't do this for home child care. So yeah, so that's all I need to say. And about the gravel, that we don't have grass, I can't change that because I'm renting the house. So I can't put grass or anything like that. But I use any little detail of child development with the kids. When we go outside, those grass are used for my program. So we use it as a math or shapes or colors. So the thing they do with those gravels is that they go to collect as much as they can in the little buckets. And then we come back and count them and who has more, and we use adding numbers with this. So I use any resource to teach the children because I have the preschool program included in the childcare. So I'm not a babysitter. I'm a childcare provider. So I use everything, but feel free to decide whatever you decide will be okay with me.
Thanks, Dulce.
That's it.
So I got a question for you. This is Shield. Did you say that you're renting the house or you own the house?
No, we are renting, and they gave us in the contract. They have one. They signed it that they gave us permission to have childcare.
And how long is your lease for?
We renew it for another year. So next year in May is the end of the contract.
So do you own a house in Salt Lake?
We don't.
Okay,
Well, I used to, but we moved here 2
That's
years
fine.
ago.
thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else would like to comment on this item here in the chamber? I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
This is Commissioner Musso. I move that we close the public hearing.
This is Anderson, I second.
Got a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Commissioners, I'll open the floor for comment or any additional questions you might have for staff or the applicant.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I have a question for Thad. I guess on what Commissioner Schill was saying, does it matter? Does a person have to own the home to get a conditional use, or can they do it if they're a renter?
No, if you look at a commercial world, a lot of businesses are just leasing the space
So I
they're
guess
in.
they're always leasing.
But I think Commissioner Schill is hitting at a relevant issue for this commission to consider, which is, does this commission want to grant a conditional use permit for a residential property for this type of application if there's not ownership? I think that's a relevant issue that a board of the commission can and should wrestle with.
Commissioner Anderson, maybe what we do is approve the conditional use permit for the length of time that her lease is, just so the permit doesn't go beyond the lease. She'd have to reapply for the conditional use when she signs a new yearly lease. That way we don't worry about her losing her place and still having a permit.
This is Shield. I was confused on her comment that she doesn't, excuse me, she doesn't care if we deny it or approve it because she'll just go to the state or something. I didn't understand that. Well, yeah, you just made the comment that you didn't care if we denied it. You'll just go get your approval from the state or something.
No, no, no. It's not that I don't care. I said that I understand because what I'm doing is that I know that I need the city license, the business license, plus the state license.
Right.
So I'm working with this now because I see that Washington City is different than Harriman or West Jordan, South Jordan.
Right.
And then if you guys decided to deny this application, this license, I had to be okay with that because if my neighbors had a concern to having, the traffic or people there, it's not that I say like, oh, but it's not in a bad sense or wrong. Don't understand me wrong. I just say that I'm willing to accept your decision. That's what I say. I want to have my business because this is what I have for many years. I love children. I love my program, but I understand that not all the neighborhoods are like, my neighbors they are not willing to have the traffic. They complain about many things and I will understand that. I know that I take that risk every time I try to reopen this business, So if I can't have it here, I had to accept your decision anyways, because I can't move until next year. So I had to just have a plan B or do something different.
Do
That's
you
what I mean.
need 16 children? Do you need to be able to do 16 children?
The thing is, I've been working with 16 kids the last 7 years, and I have approved for 16 kids. It's not that I have to have 16 kids, but if I approve just for 8 children, that is the amount that the state let me have by myself, it's okay with me too, So if I can't have the license and the state just let me have 4 children without license, that is the rule they have, then I can do that too. So in this house, something that I want to say that maybe when I open the door, my neighbor is confused, is that this house is not too big, but just my husband and I are living there. So we just need our master bedroom. So I put the rest of the house for the childcare, because I want to see the children comfortable and have all my equipment and give to the state all the room they need to qualify me for 16 kids.
Okay,
I'm
thank
applying
you.
for 16, but it's, any amount of children that have been approved, then that are going to be approved, then I'm going to help.
Right, thank you.
All right.
I'm fine. with it. So I like where you're going. As long as the lease goes.
This is Commissioner Bullock. Where this is a roundabout, we're gonna have cars going in and out the same direction. I would feel more comfortable with just the 8 with that in that cul-de-sac where you come around, turn around and go back out the same way. All of the ones that my kids have gone to, it's a detailed layout plan where we come in this way and you go out this way. Don't, to keep the flow moving. And that's my opinion on it. With 8, they don't need a conditional use permit. Right.
Yeah, you do.
you
It's, if you have 4 or less, the state just says you're babysitting. And when you hit the 5th one, that's when all the cities, all their rules hit, because that's where the state hits. If you go to 5, then you have to get, a license, and you can go up to 8 for one single person. If you go 9, even if you do 9, you've got to have a second caregiver. It's, so that's why most of them, if they're going to go beyond 8, they're going to go to 16, because they got to bring that person on anyway. So that's why, 8 and 16 are the 2 numbers for 8 and 16 when it comes to childcare with the state. And every city in the state that I'm aware of, we're pretty much all in this kind of the same boat about that. So.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I think that anyone that wants to start a business, that we should be encouraging people to start businesses, even if it's only 16 children or whatever. And also I mean, I know from experience right now that most people trying to find a preschool for your kids, you're on waiting lists for a year sometimes. I mean, Washington could easily use some more preschool. I don't know about daycare. I don't do daycare, but so.
Dulce, if you have a question, if you wouldn't mind coming up and again, let her know who it is that's speaking for the record.
Thank you. I just want to know if there's any difference for the schedule of preschool only, not preschool and childcare.
That's based
Are
on
there
what
rules?
you want to, that's part of your application. We don't say you can only be from this time to this time. We let the applicant come and say, I'm going to run mine from this time to this time. And either the commission's either going to agree with it or not, but there's not anything in our code that says if I do a daycare, I can run from here to here. But if I do a preschool, it's in the blocks of, because most preschools don't go all day. You know that the kids, they're only good for X amount of hours at that age. And either you're doing daycare with them part of the day, and then you're doing a preschool for, usually a preschool doesn't last much more than 3 hours, so that's up to you to put that forward. So, with this particular thing, I feel that a preschool can fall within daycare the way we look at it from our perspective as a city, at least my department. So, that's why some people will come in specifically for preschool and I'm running my session 1 or session A from 9 till 11:30. And then I'm bringing in a different group of kids from 1 to 3:30, and they'll specifically do it for preschool, but I'm okay with someone putting preschool in under daycare because the kids are there all day. I don't get into it, but we don't have a thing on hours. That's for you to say, I want to run it, so that's why your hours are probably just fine, 7 to 6. And then you can run it how you want. We're approving you to have kids there from 7 till 6 and whatever days, some caregivers don't do Fridays. They want Friday off for themselves. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So, but you're going for 5 and that's fine because you're used to it. And, but that's totally up to the applicant to ask for the days and the hours.
Okay.
Now, if it start getting late at night, we start getting a little worrisome, saying, well, that just doesn't make much sense of, we understand you may be doing nurses that work at night. Well, then you'd come in and say, I specifically target nurses that work, the night shift. So that's what my business is. Then we'd probably say, that's probably all right. That makes sense. But so when you come in with these hours, it's not suspicious. It's fine. So it's all about what you propose.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
This Commissioner Anderson, I think the fact that we have the 2 different programs, the daycare and the preschool, and they're totally different hours, I think that will help with the traffic because all of those 16 kids are not necessarily going to be coming and going at the exact same time.
They could,
They
but
could,
they
but
might
they're
not.
probably
That's
not
right.
going to. Is what
Yeah,
I'm trying to
some
say.
will just do the daycare part of it.
Right.
So,
Anyway. It's Commissioner Anderson, I'll make a motion to approve C-21-07, request for conditional use permit for daycare facility located at 2338 Colatero Circle with the 8 conditions as noted by staff.
Do you want to add? Do you want
With-
to add anything
yes.
about the lease?
The conditional use report, or sorry, the conditional use approval will go till the end of the applicant's lease, which, can you get that exact date, I guess, from her? Joe?
yeah, your date. I mean, we'll just say the last day. You think it's in May?
In May?
I would just say the last day of
Okay.
May, but you can come back. If you stay, you'll just come back before the planning commission and then they can
Renew it.
go that way. So I would
We'll-
just
we'll
put the
say
last day
conditional
of May.
use permit to expire May of 2022,
31st.
Can we add
31st,
another,
2022.
can we add another condition that this is her permanent residence? That one bothers me quite a bit.
True, and this has to remain her permanent residence.
So that would be
Yeah, I agree with
2
that.
more conditions.
So Kathy, the two conditions on this are that it expires May 31st, 2022, when her lease expires, and that this has to remain her primary residence in order for the conditional use to be in effect.
This is Sheila. I would second that.
Kathy, do you need anything else from the commissioners?
No, I got it. Thank you.
I've got a first by Commissioner Anderson, a second by Commissioner Shield. Individual voting: Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock,
Nay.
Hanson. I'm an aye as well. This motion passes. The consideration for approval has been accepted. Do you have any questions for us? Good, understand?
Just make sure when you get your state license, you bring a copy into Kathy. We have to have that in your file. Because we
Thanks,
don't want to have to
Dulce.
go chasing. That's the biggest thing we always remind them. Make sure when you get it, just for everybody to understand what happens here, the state won't give her a license for that address till we give an approval through the city. That's how. So it's always the rock, I mean, the egg before the chicken, the cart before. So, but it's always that, so we're the ones that say, okay, we'll go forward. The state holds off. They won't issue till she shows them her approved conditional use permit. So.
All right, we'll move to item number 7A. This is a plat amendment. It's a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the city council for Sycamore Estates final plat located at Sycamore Lane. The purpose is to incorporate the common area into lots 1 and 8. The applicant is Jed Christensen. I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thank you, commissioners. The applicants request an approval of the amended final plat as stated for Sycamore Estates. The reason for this amendment request is simply to eliminate the common area bordering lots 1 and 8 on that east boundary. The subdivision used to be zoned RA1 and they utilized the bonus density program. Since then, the residents have gone through a rezone approval of that and of the subdivision, which is now zoned R115. Thus, the common area that is currently on the east boundary of lots 1 and 8 that was required because they offered it as part of their bonus density credits is no longer there. Staff's only concern is that the proposed amended plat does not show any landscape strip along 2040 West Street, which is generally required on all subdivisions that border or have double frontage lots onto other city streets that are outside of the boundary. Staff would like to see this either added as a common area or as a landscape strip easement maintained by lots 1 and 8. I'll leave that up to the applicant as it falls on their respective properties. Staff has reviewed the proposed amended final plat and finds it conforms to the current zoning and the subdivision ordinance as well. Again, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the amended final plat for the Sycamore Estates subdivision, incorporating the open space common area previously required from past zoning into lots 1 and 8, made part of these two, as well as consideration for the landscape strip along 2040 West. And that would be onto the city council and it's based on the original findings, subject to the original conditions. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on this proposal.
Drew, this is Commissioner Anderson. Is there an HOA in this community? So like if it were to be common area, is there an HOA to maintain that landscape strip?
Well, there probably should have been because it used to be common area and the subdivision recorded that way. Now, I don't know if an applicant's here representing this or if they're on the phone. Anybody on the phone for this particular item? Either Jed or Rosenberg, no one's here tonight, so. But I would have thought there should have been one because they have a detention area on the west end and then they had this area that was out here that had not finished out. And that was what's kind of driving this is that the council let them put it off till the end. They were supposed to landscape there. It was a 25 or 30 foot area, but it got credits for that. But so I think there might be, but I can't guarantee there is an HOA.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I know that when I drove by this before they come in for the preliminary plat and they're already getting block walls and stuff up. Do we know if those walls are offset enough to cover the landscape or are they going to be
I don't
ripping
know. I
those down and
haven't,
moving them?
I haven't been out and looked at this particular property. Is there a strip between the sidewalk or that? Because there was asphalt. Is that block wall built right to the edge of that asphalt sidewalk?
I want to say yes. When I looked at it, that's what I thought.
Okay.
There's a block wall, a basketball court, cement pad, there's everything. This is last meeting.
At the zone change.
Yeah.
I remember someone wrote me When you wrote me,
picture
oh,
of it.
you took the picture.
I took a
that's right.
picture and sent it because I was like, oh, hold on a second.
Yeah, so when this proposal came, because I remember I didn't talk to the applicant on here as lot number 8, Jed. I talked to the owner of lot 1 who actually had the idea a couple of years ago. I said, this is what you got to do. You know, if you guys want this, you have to come through. I thought that might have been passed on, but when I saw this plat come in like this, plus I do not think, I'm gonna have to get with Rosenberg. Maybe the cul-de-sac does go out that far, but I don't think that it does.
I did notice that the cul-de-sac went out.
Seems
very
like it's
far,
too far
but
out
I don't
because
if
I
you
know
can get
there's an asphalt sidewalk there that got put in. Okay, years ago that staff wasn't thrilled about, but it anyway got in. And that gap right there says 6, is it 6.01? My eyes are
That's what it says.
Yeah,
not as bad as I
6.01.
thought they were. So, because that was supposed to be, I think, a 10-foot wide asphalt strip. So I'm going to have to get with Rosenberg on this as well. Find out
Well,
where that is.
So Drew, the way you read that to us, it sounded like, okay, they want to take the strip, but then we're going to take the strip back because we want that to be a sidewalk, the city.
Well,
Is
they
that
have
kinda
to
what you-
provide improvements. That's part of the public right of way. Now, Brandon could probably say, what is 240, Brandon? Is that a 66 or a 60? I can bring it up.
It's a
but I don't know if
60,
you-
it's a
It's
60.
a 60?
I'm willing
So there's
bet
going to be
it's-
required there. I mean, at the time would have been a 5-foot sidewalk as part of that. So that's probably where the other 6 foot's coming from. It is, but the extra foot is that, and it's partly on that. But that's still showing on their property, that asphalt. But they didn't cut the asphalt, did they?
I'm
They
not,
did cut the asphalt? It used to be the trail? It's a 5-foot and then this is right up. Okay.
So Brandon, could you clarify to us then what it looks like right now?
Well, right now it sounds to me like that block wall is on that hard black line that says 165.93 on the south end and 174.15 on the north end. Guarantee that wall is probably sitting right on that black line.
So if that's the case, that black line needs to be moved 6 feet.
no, the block
No,
wall should be.
The block wall, excuse me,
Well, I'm just saying that I wish they
would have had the
wouldn't
cart
have-
before the horse is
wouldn't
what we
been-
have.
Yeah, because that egg might have cracked.
I think Commissioner,
Chicken
let me
fell.
open this up for a public comment really quick, and then I have a commissioner comment. I'm going to open this up for a public comment. Anybody here in the chambers that would like to speak to this item? I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing on 7A.
This is Shill, I propose we close the public hearing for item 7A.
Sanderson, I second.
Got a first and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm an aye as well. My thoughts, commissioners, when we had this come before us last time and I drove out there after the meeting and saw that the work had already been completed, I was floored, to be honest with you. And I think we had considered denying this until we get better answers of why and how they were able to do that prior to getting any sort of approval. I wouldn't be willing to give up anything for the city to somebody that went ahead and, I mean, there's a basketball court with a hoop. There's a block wall. The work appeared to me to be done the last time we did that. And it really sat not well with me. I'm more than happy to vote in negative as this one, unless somebody can talk me out of it.
Brandon Wright with Public Works. The applicant talked to us about removal of the trail and then repouring back the concrete sidewalk. We didn't have a problem with that. It was on the public right away. Everything else, we weren't part of that. It's just the public improvements that we discussed it with him.
So is there no landscape there between the wall and the sidewalk? That's not required?
We didn't discuss that. So what he did outside of that sidewalk, then that's something that was not discussed with us.
Is it fair to say, Brandon, that this needs to be cleaned up then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Drew, how big of a park strip does it need to be?
Well, we've ranged anywhere from 10 to 20, I like 15, but there are certain circumstances we've done 10. You know, it's just any double fronted lots onto roads. You know, especially 60 and bigger, you know, actually we do it on all of them. Everybody's always done that. They've just been good about having that park strip so we don't have block walls sitting on top of sidewalk, you know, right next to them doing those. You look across the street, now they're a bonus density, so they have big because they got credits for having that in Brookhaven. Theirs is quite bigger, but they ended up getting acreage and extra credits because they made their park, you know, the landscape strip bigger, because they are a bonus density on that.
So why, sorry, this is Commissioner Bullock, Kathy, why on the preliminary plat, was that not picked up? Was it just overlooked or?
No, the preliminary plat back then had bonus density credits.
No, when it, oh, they just did a zone change.
This is an amendment. Yeah,
All they did
this is
was
an
a zone
amendment to an
change.
already existing.
Okay, yeah, they did.
subdivision. So that's.
I'm sorry, I thought we had a preliminary plat on this, but it was a zone change. That's right.
What's the expectation that 240 West is going to become more busy, if that's proper English? I would say we get it right instead of getting it through tonight.
So this is Commissioner Anderson. I agree. I think we need to deny it because this has to get fixed. But I also think, let's say they were going to fix it. I think it's a lot better if they whatever staff decides, whether it's 10 feet or 15 feet or whatever. I think that it'd be better if it was designated as common area and taken off those lots. So the HOA, so there's an HOA that actually maintains it rather than pulling it back and it's on the other side of a block wall and then those two property owners have to maintain it. That's just a lot harder to enforce and make sure that happens. So I would say it should go to common area and come off of those lots.
But is this Musso? So is the HOA though those two lots?
Well, that's what
So-
I was asking. He said they
Yeah.
have a detention base and everything else with that community. So
But if they don't have an HOA.
They
in
don't have
the
an HOA,
community,
then it's a
Then it's
problem,
those two
yeah.
lots that's their
And I
HOA.
have properties that, you
Right.
know, there are ownership out to the street, but the strip is, and they take care of them. They just run their dripped lines out and everything else. And they, you know, most of them put it in crushed, you know, rock and just have minimal things, you know, a tree or two and some bushes out there. That's all we're asking is just some gap between.
So the 10 feet or 15 feet, that includes the sidewalk?
No, that's the sidewalk's part of the right of way.
Okay.
So essentially, how either way, they're gonna have to move the fence. And if they have basketball courts or whatever, they're gonna have to take it out and they're gonna have to put some sort of landscaping 10 or 15 feet between the sidewalk and their new fence. And it either has to be still their property, but an easement dedicated for that, or they give that property as common area to the HOA if there is an HOA. I mean, it's one or the other.
Drew, what on the subdivision just north of that, are those houses pulling onto that?
They face the street, so you have a 20-foot setback. You know, it kind of helps cover that because I don't have block walls there. But these guys all have driveways all along. But then this is part of their bonus density out here and also, you know, back in here. So just to kind of scroll through, you can see a lot of the other developments, you know, they all have the landscape strip around.
Instead of rejecting it, were we better off tabling it so they can get this corrected?
I'd feel better about then they don't have to go through all the noticing and all that.
Let's table it until we can get some answers. There might be very good answers from somebody that's just not here representing the applicant or the homeowner there. They can at least answer it for us. Yeah.
One of the nice things of tabling it is it doesn't send anything onto the council at this point. No, the commission should acknowledge that it is a halt in the process, of course. But if there are issues that the commission thinks must be resolved before you're willing to even take it on a vote, it's a good solution.
My gut feeling is that they went ahead and did whatever they wanted to, and this is the afterthought from that process.
I don't know specifically on that, but this particular development has been amended and revised quite a bit over the years. It's one of the older Fields developments, and it's just undergone a lot of, what would we call it, Drew? Just it's adjusted with the times.
Evolution, I
Yeah.
guess is the best way to, yeah, with daybreak above on it and everything. So
I'll entertain a motion at this time.
It's Commissioner Anderson, I'll make a motion that we table the amended final plat for Sycamore Estates amended subdivision at 260 west, 3390 south, to give the applicant time to work with staff and come up with a plan to provide landscape strip along 240 west as either a landscape strip easement maintained by lots 1 and 8, or common area maintained by homeowners association.
This is Musso. I second that.
Got it first by Anderson, a second by Commissioner Musso, Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The item is tabled until, Eldon, do we know what the possible date in the future might be that this would come back before us?
should be the 18th, I think, of
18th.
August.
Yes, the 18th.
Okay, that'll be tabled until at the soonest August 18th meeting. We will move to item number 7B. This is also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the city council for Wilbur Acres number 4, final plat amendment located at 960 South, 1900 East. The purpose is to combine lot 6 and 7. The applicant is Russ Erdley and Travis Jones.
Thank you. As stated, applicants requesting to amend the final plat for Wilbur Acres. This will be the fourth amendment to the subdivision. The reason for this amendment request is simply to combine, as stated, lots 6 and 7 into making it just lot 6. So 7 will just be dropped off the plat. Staff's reviewed the proposed amended final plat and finds it conforms to the zoning and also to the subdivision ordinance, and staff has no problem with combining these two lots to make one lot. They're in the middle. Staff recommends that the planning commission recommend approval of the amended final plat for the Wilbur Acres fourth amendment subdivision, combining lots 6 and 7 into one lot. And that would be on to the city council based on the findings and subject to the following original conditions. Be glad to answer any questions the commissioners might have on this before you do your public hearing.
Okay, commissioners, I'll open up the floor at this time for any questions. If there are none at this time, I'll open up the public hearing. If there's anybody here in the chambers that would like to speak to this item, please come forth and do so. I'll look for a motion at this time to close the public hearing from the commissioners.
This is Musso. So moved.
Anderson, I second.
I've got a first and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Any
So
additional questions from the commissioners?
this is the only question I have, Drew. How big a building can he put on that? Does it matter then? Because it looks like they have parking as common area.
It is, it's kind of shared. This is again, this is an evolving. So I will tell you, lots 6 and 7 were actually held out. They used to be the leach field for all the septic tanks in there back in the day, because that's how old this one is.
Oh,
We always knew that when sewer then would come, then these would be turned into usable lots. Sewer is available, they're hooked in. And so now that they're viable lots, now someone wants, I think, both of them, and it's probably wise. Now, their setbacks would be basically 10 feet off of all four corners in this case, because it's off the street already a bit, which is 1900 East that you follow down. So you could have 10 feet off of, so I don't, how big is that lot? Let's zoom down in there. and
65
Well,
feet
it's-
wide.
12,000
So-
feet.
It could be a 45, wide building by however the length is 180 something minus 20 feet. So they could put
Okay.
What's
40
it
by-
currently zoned? Do we know?
what's that? It's
What is
it's
it?
industrial.
Industrial.
Yeah, in fact, I think it might be heavy.
It's I-1.
I-1.
Is it one still at that area? I couldn't remember because I
Same-
know
same as
after,
mine.
well, that's true. The farther in you go, it goes to I-1. We're out on the street. It's Yeah, so
Oh, it's got parking.
Commissioner
for it.
Bullock's right out, not too far from here. So,
But their setbacks wouldn't be off of where they're the 85, it'd only be 10 feet from where the parking is, right? Where the
yeah,
other-
that's
they
why I
already got
say
their
it's just
setbacks,
10 because it's usually 20 off of a street
right?
and they
that-
have that little bubble already on there.
So yeah, so it's only,
So it's going to be 10 off of each property line.
okay.
Now, they could come in, I think, and ask for 0, but in this case, it'd be kind of hard to give it to them, because the parking's right there and building code stuff and everything. So
So you could have a building 45 feet deep.
by
is that what
100
you
and
said?
something feet, yeah.
Yeah.
You could still fit a 5,000 square
Yeah,
foot building
you
on it
can.
fairly easy with roll-up doors.
By 177 feet.
Yeah.
What's the remediation for a leach field?
Geotech. That's all I would have a soils analysis done, because again, has it been heavily used? Probably maybe not, because you have industrial buildings and, I would think that a home would have probably put more in the leach field than even these guys would have. I don't know.
Most of the leach fields are the end result of a planned and designed system that we already know is going to be leaching. And so it's not like it's a hazmat situation. It's a leach field of a system that's designed to leach and that the public bodies acknowledge and know is not hazardous in and of its nature. Now, we do have studies in our county that have identified within the different soil situations throughout the county, the amount of acreage that would be required to install something like this in a new development. And so they have studied that and said, it needs to be at least so many acres to get another one. But as far as the leach field itself, it's the result of a designed and planned system.
Yeah, so we'll just recommend that they have a good soils, geotech, take a good look at it, just so they, we always require a geotech pad certification for everything anyway, but because this one has, the circumstances that it did, that they do a little maybe extended on that before, because I would want to build a bill unless I, had a pretty good analysis done on it. Over exit.
Yeah, at least remove a tank, any tank or apparatus in ground. Yeah.
Anything else, gentlemen and ladies? I did open and close the public hearing, yes? Okay, perfect. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll look
Nicely
for a
job.
motion.
The right one. This is Commissioner Bullock. I'd make a motion that we recommend approval of the final plat for Wilbur Acres Fourth Amendment subdivision, combining lots 6 and 7 into one onto the city council based on the following findings and conditions that staff has listed.
Ms. Shield, I second that.
Got a first and a second. Commissioner Bullock first, Commissioner Shield second. Individual voting. Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. So we'll move that to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Item number 8A. This is a public hearing as well for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for Liberty Lane preliminary plat located approximately 3600 South, 240 West. The applicant is Leanne Hoops. Turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thanks, Commissioner. The applicant is proposing 10 lots on an area of coverage of 5.05 acres. The zoning designation at this location is R112. The surrounding zoning is RA1 to the north and east, with R115 to the south and west. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning and meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Liberty Lane subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open up the floor if you have any questions, initial questions for staff.
This is Commissioner Bullock. Drew, this is on the same road, same side, I'm assuming, as the amended one.
Just south.
Does this have the setbacks and requirements that we're asking the other one to do on that frontage road with these two lots? Gonna come in off of that lot,
It's a 60-foot right away. So they can't go
where
over that.
one will come in off of that and two.
So the curb cut on
Drew, Kathy
lot
can't hear
one
you.
is,
Yeah, so on these lots 1 and 2, I probably wouldn't enforce that so much because of the scenario between lot 1 right now, because it's going to be a front yard no matter what. So if I have this front yard and then I require this thing, I'm just gonna, because they could enter off of either one of these, in this case. Does that make sense?
You might have lost me on that one. Sorry.
Okay.
So we're allowing traffic to come in off at 240 into 1 and 2? Or just
Well,
one?
they have their choice on 1 and not on 1. It's an absolute.
Right.
There's only one way they're going to get into that. Lot 2 could be either one.
Okay, so if they decide to come in off the 50-foot one, is that going to be lot 2? I mean, if they're coming in off of Centerfield Circle, do they need to hold their setback so that, or can they build
Their
to put their?
setbacks are automatic on a
I'm sorry,
corner lot.
Are they going to be able to?
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to run their block wall all the way to the sidewalk on that one?
Well, this might be one where we don't. Maybe we have it held back because of the scenario in this particular case, because of the size of the road, et cetera. That, now lot 10 again.
I think all we're saying is we'd like it to be consistent. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Well,
Are we in agreement there?
I totally agree, but I wish it was an apple and an apple, but it's,
Yeah, it's not.
the other one is a
On one.
cul-de-sac. You drive through somewhere else, you come in, you enter. It's a double fronted lot with, no other way. They're coming in off the cul-de-sac there.
No, I understand that.
So,
So
yeah.
lot 2 will come in off the cul-de-sac? Or
No,
we
I'm talking
don't
about the
know?
one up north, what we're talking.
Oh,
here.
okay, yeah, I see
So-
what you're saying. No, that's what.
Oh,
that's why I
this
asked.
is one, this is why our job is not easy, just because of the things,
what's,
the
what's-
scenarios that
what's
you
the
end up with.
drawing in red?
I'm just saying you can enter off of, I'm just giving you driveways could come off, driveways can come off either street in this case.
But to be consistent on lots 10 and 2, assuming if they have the driveways off the cul-de-sac, which would make sense, and that would be their side yards. I think what Pete's trying to allude to is that where the fence is should be consistent where we're requiring those other lots that we just discussed be. Is that what you're, that's how I inferred what you were saying, Pete, right?
Well, I was just curious if there was, I don't know how close it is to the other one. I just wanted to make sure, I know those 1 and 2 can come in off that way. But I was just curious how far the setback was. If they're going to be up to the fence, then it's just going to go down and go back out as it goes.
Yeah, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this coin back a little to the one you're bringing the example up. If that cul-de-sac wasn't a cul-de-sac and it was a street going out, we probably wouldn't be here amending the plat on the one up above.
Okay.
That's why to make it simpler for you, that's probably, as a city probably would looked at that and not have had an issue with it. But it goes from a big common area, the access comes from somewhere totally else, different. And this is what's left as a.
Yeah, but I guess is the road going to be going one of these deals on us?
Not in this
like
case,
the rest of
no.
the city does, or half the
Just
city
the
does?
sidewalk.
Just the sidewalk area.
Well, not even the sidewalk, just the.
Yeah, in this
the
case, the
setbacks.
side, across the street, you have the meandering sidewalk, not on this side.
So is this just a case of it's just this way because that's how the city code is? Because it seems like it wouldn't really matter whether you had a cul-de-sac there or it went straight through. You essentially got the same issue going on. Or, I mean, is it just because that's just the way code is and
It
what
is, and that's where sometimes not, it's not a one size, and that's what I try to tell people. It's not always a one size fit all. And every time you think you got everything covered, something comes through the door that says, wait a minute.
I mean, I can see like on the last one we were looking at, the lot on the north, it's basically got roads on three sides. It's got 240, it's got the cul-de-sac, and then it's got the other entrance. So I can kind of see it. The lot to the south, though, it's more like this, where it's got 240 and then the cul-de-sac, I don't know. Again, I think we should kind of be consistent, especially seeing how this is just a small way down the road, not very far away.
Like I say, my issue with this, if you're going to be in that consistency, lot 2 is going to, you're going to see it and you're going to go, what were they thinking on that? Because you make them put this plant, strip where lot 1 doesn't have it, and you've got this,
Unless you make that
One lot. That's what I'm wondering. And Leanne's I'm gonna ask her in a minute, but why can't we just have one lot there and keep it consistent with what we just did? I'm going to open up the public hearing on this so we can get it open and closed. Is there anybody here in the chambers? Leanne, we'll give you a chance in a minute if you'd like to speak, but is there anybody else that would like to speak on this particular item? Randy?
Brandy Walker, Civil Science with Leanne tonight representing her. Drew, can you show the aerial photo? Because I think we're getting kind of pigeonholed into thinking that what Sycamore is above us is what we are. But the whole front, the bulk of the frontage of Daybreak also fronts 240. So Sycamore is kind of the oddball out, not us.
Correct.
So Leanne just barely got zone change approval for R112. These lots are substantially larger. Are we 10 or 12? But these lots are a lot larger than our base zone, just on her own will to do so. So if we zoom to the north, if you look at Brookhaven, I did that one way back in the day. The reason it doesn't front 240 is simply the lay of the land. It was too narrow. So in order to get 3 rows, the homes in there, they just backed the street just because we didn't have a choice. But if you look up at Daybreak, just north of Sycamore, all those homes are fronting 240, their front yards. So the possibility of the lots on those corners going into Leanne development, of actually facing a house out there possibly and having the side load garage is a big possibility. So to put a park strip along those lots, I think would actually look awkward as.
That's what we're trying to clear up, Brandy, the way I understand it, if you wouldn't mind staying there. Because right north of them, they've moved their fence way closer to the road than lot 1 would be and lot 2 would be. And we're trying to remain consistent. I think that's, unless I'm misspeaking, that's what we're trying to do. If that house wasn't there, I wouldn't have, they hadn't moved a fence closer to the road like they've done, that's already there. You've seen it, I'm sure, out there. We understand that. I would think, honestly, and looking at it again, the fact that the project that we just saw has a fence that much closer to the road creates a safety issue for lot 1 coming out of their driveway. I understand it's big. I get
5-acre parcel in between us. We don't touch each other. There's a gap.
I misunderstood then.
You'd have.
Does lot 1 not butt up to this one
No.
here?
No, it
I'm
doesn't.
mistaken.
We're right here.
I'm mistaken then.
There's this big gap. They just recently split.
I'm mistaken then. I thought we were butting up against it. Okay, scratch everything I said. When the next one comes, that's going to be the problem.
This blue box is the one we're talking about. You can see, so there's
Okay.
a
But if you
double
have
lot
So
in
we have a
between there.
chance to fix the problem on the north one that comes to us at some point in the future where it never makes it down to this property. We can fix it there and it can come however we're going to fix it on a more gradual basis because we're going to have a road there as well, correct?
But if we fence here, this guy can't see how to get on the road.
Well, that's if it butts up against it. That's what I thought too.
Same here though. He still has to be able to see.
Maybe I'm the dumbest guy in the room. Am I misunderstanding this completely? I have no problem being the dumbest guy in the room. I just need to make sure that.
Oh, you're seeing something the way you're seeing it. That's all. We're
Right.
just-
The one before is the oddball. This does not butt to the one before, so that doesn't matter. But it will be a problem when the one above this comes to us, correct? Because we're going to have the problem with the next development.
One above you is going to be 2 big lots.
It's not gonna matter.
No,
That's the
it-
two that the Merrill Lynch guy
We
had.
know who's building on that. And
He
one will be
came in
his
about a-
home and one will be his in-laws.
And that's that gentleman that came in about a year and a half, the Merrill Lynch guy, right? I think. it was Mer-
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go. I'm the dumbest guy in the room.
No,
I'm
you're,
happy
you're
to do
not,
it.
not at all.
That puts this whole thing into a new light where I need to ask.
The other one is the one that's the weird one, because if you look at, go back to your map.
Way, this one?
Yeah.
And
Go up, I guess. You look there, all those other ones, you know, they're either facing the street or they got a wall or whatever, but then yet, this is just a weird.
Right. No, I understand that, but if it doesn't matter because I am wrong. But if we looked at it as if I was right, there is a problem. But because if this is going to butt up to that property we just saw, that would be a problem. But it's not. It's that I'm wrong. So then it's another discussion of how we fix it. Yeah.
that blue box is the one we're looking at right now in relationship to, and there's, like I say, this, is that a 20-acre parcel or a 10? I mean, the area. What is your piece? So it's 10 acres basically, or no, it's 5. You had 5, he had 5. Okay.
That's lot one.
That's lot 1.
So it would have a 20-foot setback.
Randy, what are we missing? Help explain this to us so we can all be on the same page.
I think if we didn't have the Sycamore discussion, this probably wouldn't even be a concern because this is common in all over town.
That flag lot goes in there.
Doesn't matter. Lot 1 is gonna have their driveway in front of their house facing 240, so they're not gonna put. a
That's
block
why-
wall there. They gotta have it in front of it.
That's
They
what,
won't be able to
that's,
put a block wall in lot 1.
Well, what about the flag lot? Can he do it?
I don't think he'd run.
The one above them? The one above them?
Yeah, above him.
I doubt it will be a flag.
6-foot block wall you can't see to get out.
He'll have the setback, right? I mean, he'll be way back because that's his front yard.
That's not an issue. Flag lot doesn't matter at all. The guy above the flag lot, he's not likely to box himself in. They're not gonna make a comment.
Am I
So-
missing something, Drew?
I think we got it.
Okay.
So the drainage basin, that's just a no build zone. That's just a dead area, basically, correct? Okay.
Is this community, is there a plan for it to be gated? Okay.
Now, is this the 1450 road extension? So that's the road that's going to go around the church up to the temple, correct? Okay. Or around.
Oh, and if you guys look, there's a 10-foot landscape easement.
15-foot landscape.
Is that what it? I
It says
can't remember. It's
15.
like, yeah, 15.
Okay.
There's your justification right there.
Yeah, I am. Kathy, did we close the public hearing?
I don't think you did. We've had so many of them, I know.
I know. I'll look for a
No.
motion.
No, you did not.
Did we open it?
You did open it.
Batting 500 is not bad. Okay.
It's only 7:15.
I'll
That's
look
gonna
for a
get ugly.
motion.
It's not 10?
I look for a motion, second on the motion. Oh, I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion to close that public hearing.
This is Musso, I second.
I've got a first and a second, close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Public hearing is closed. I'll look for a motion at this time on item 8A.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat approval for Liberty Lane subdivision located at 3600 South, 240 West. Based on the two findings and subject to the 12 conditions forwarded on to city council for approval.
this is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
I've got a first by Commissioner Anderson, a second by Commissioner Bullock, individual voting, Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Commissioner Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. I apologize for my mistake, Leanne. I'm not the dumbest guy in the room, but I'm close. Okay.
You're sitting next to the.
We'll
dumbest
move
guy.
to the next item, number 8B. Public hearing for consideration recommendation to the city council. Nope, that's one we just did. No. Public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the city council for the Heritage Place preliminary plat located approximately 1800 South Washington Fields Road. The applicant is Nice and Field LLC. I'll turn the time over to staff.
Thanks, Commissioner. This preliminary plat was previously approved back in 2019, April 10th of 2019, but due to no final plat being recorded within the time frame to do so, the application had expired. And the applicant is wanting to move forward with this at this time, and this is a mirror image of what was previously approved. The applicant is requesting approval of the preliminary plat located at 2000 South Washington Fields Road. The applicant is proposing 179 lots on an area of coverage of 44.352 acres. Zoning designation at this particular location is planned unit development residential, along with planned unit development commercial on the corner. The surrounding zoning is R110 to the north, RA half, and R112 to the east, R110 and R18 to the west, with agricultural 20 and R112 to the south. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning and meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Heritage Place subdivision to the City Council based on the following original findings and subject to the following original conditions.
Seldon Commissioners, I'll open the floor for any questions that you have. Drew, I'm going to ask you this because you were here when this came through. When we first saw this development and the design of the homes, will we see the design again for approval before it goes to another step? I guess my main question actually is this. We had talked about the homes that front Washington Fields Road and having some kind of a bump out so it wasn't flat all the way across there. Will we be able to see that, or are they going to adhere to what was approved at that time where it had some sort of a change in?
That was all in the zoning, so you won't see it. You saw it at that time on this, and so that's whatever, that approved PUD was, is what they'll be required to build.
They can't change from what we had approved at that time.
Right. If they do change that, that's part of the zoning change. They'd have to come in and amend their zoning,
Okay.
PUD part of that to do that.
Perfect. The only other question I had was next to 103, is there any access at all off of Washington Fields Road, whether it's a sidewalk, a trail, a road? Obviously, it's not a road, but is there any access from Washington Fields Road to the bottom of 103 into the development, or is that fenced off?
There's no access through there right now. You have that entrance, but that comes here, and you have to make an immediate right to go into the 5 lots there. So there is not right now, there was a road, it was the farmer's road. He just drive his tractors and things.
Yeah.
That will not be utilized
For a sidewalk or anything, correct?
for anything.
Okay.
So where are
Now
the,
you could walk through it, I think, because it's not going to be, I don't know if they block it off, but yeah.
so where are the lots, where are the access to those 5 lots then? To Greens and Erdley and
Well, that's why I said that is their access.
so that
Those 5
remains their
lots.
access.
It's not, yeah. Let me bring up.
I want to just make sure there's a separation from the access to these units. If it's a block wall, that's fine. But I was just kind of curious what that was going to look
Yeah,
like.
so they probably will put one in because we're getting there.
It's right there.
Yeah, but this area will probably not be used anymore, right where my arrow's jumping around. But this is the access to those 5 lots right here.
think
It's
that
not for
road-
this development at all.
They've already cut that down.
Yeah,
right
that
there.
road along the hill's already been graded out and it's not
So,
there.
Yeah, so then they turn right. Again, they come off Washington Fields Road, they have to make a right and then go to those five lots.
I guess to make sure I'm clear on what I'm asking, if somebody lived in the community that's here before us in 103 or 102 or whatever, and they wanted to walk to Washington Fields Road, could they access that driveway right there and walk out?
As long as their development doesn't block a wall off, they could.
And that's entirely up to the
That's how
development.
their design is. They may put a block wall there, you know, and then it depends on where that block wall starts and ends, but I would imagine they're not going to run it up the hill.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine someone, if they wanted to, kids will be kids, will still go around there.
But we need to be careful for a public meeting. That's not a public right of way on that little road. And those, you know, a future owner of unit 103 doesn't have a legal right to use that road. They might use it practically, but as far as the right, there is none.
Correct.
Legally, they couldn't put a garage back there and enter back there.
Correct.
Is there any reason that we should have that as a stipulation to have that chained off or something? Because somebody may try to drive through there.
I don't think that they'll try to drive through there. The way this design's laid out and everything, I just cannot
Okay.
see that happening. More than likely, I think there's going to be a block wall built there anyway for a privacy wall, to be perfectly, I mean, I can't see them not doing that. Well, between 103 and that,
It's just the mountain.
you
just
know,
right
the
up to
boo, is
mountain.
it Booze or Bose? I mean, that one and that roadway that they access where that you see that lettering 132.45. That's that inlet off of Washington Fields Road for those 5 lots. I can't see them building anything there.
And that inlet's a grandfathered access. It's not up to, you know, what we would require it to be for a new one. And so if there becomes an issue with that being used more heavily than just those lots that are there, I think the city would get involved and make sure to, yeah, we don't.
No.
Yeah. Well, if you read that plat right, it looks like that easement, their ingress and egress is actually part of Heritage Place, but you can see there's a doc written of a recorded ingress egress easement that looks like that goes. And again, you got to remember that the Nisons owned all that property at once, and that where the Booz's house is, one of the Nison siblings, it was the it was a daughter or a granddaughter to Roy. I think it was his granddaughter. They owned that house for a while. So, you know, back then it was nice and property, nice and property, nice and property. So they didn't worry much. But then the city had to come in when we put the light in there and get that easement and everything done. So there's an evolution on this piece as well, but no.
If you wanted to be creative, and this isn't the time to be creative, but you would find a way to move all of those houses that front Washington Fields so that all of their ingress egress flows through the other development. But this isn't the place for that. But that's really, you know, if we wanted to plan this well, that's what we would prefer is that they access.
Yeah, we would have run a road down on 103 into Livy Lane, or Livy Lane, Livy. But yeah, we're trying not to have that or have the other people go use their thing is what we're not, because it's not a big enough one.
And we don't have the right to force that at this point either.
No.
At this time, while you're thinking of other questions or comments you might have, I'm going to open this up so I don't forget for a public hearing on item 7B. Is there anybody here in the chambers that would like to speak to this item? Bob, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Yep, Bob Hermanson with Bush and Gudgel. Pleasure to be with you tonight, representing the project this evening. Just wanted to point out a couple of things about the project. So our entitlements, were approved, construction drawings approved. We went through the approval process through the construction drawings as quickly as possible, even through all of the chaos of last year and everything else, we never stopped. We went through and all of our plans were approved. It's under phases 1, 2, 3, and 4 are well into construction right now. And so we're not in, the only reason that we're here is to fulfill the requirement because we weren't able to finish enough of it to get the final plat recorded in order to continue. And so we were just midstream. And so phase 1 is along the south, and then 2, and then 3 and 4 basically just work our way north. Phases 2 and 3, we're 3/4 of the way through construction now. We're getting really close, and we're roughly probably 50% on 3 and working into 4 as well, all at the same time. And obviously have just been charging forward with the approval that we had with the construction drawings. And so again, we're not asking for any changes whatsoever. We're not asking for anything. We're just asking to continue as we have been. And we've been trying to, we had no delay on our end. We were just trying to produce the full set of construction drawings for the whole full project, and then started construction. And this is where we are. It had nothing to do with anything else.
I guess,
Go ahead.
excuse me, I guess my pet peeve is that that's an awful big presumption. Because you have a whole different council here than everything else. I mean, and they've been moving dirt out there for the last 2.5 months without having a truly, codified preliminary plat approval.
We just to be clear and make sure that I'm on the same page with you, is it was approved prior to that. Our
Right,
construction
and
drawings-
expired.
Right, but we were moving dirt prior to that. We had started construction prior to that.
Prior
Like-
to the expiration of the previous plat.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that, yeah,
Did that?
100%.
Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, so I really, it was just a lot of plan sets to work through with everybody. Everybody's been great. We've just been going through the process. It's just where we've ended up with everything. That's all. And obviously have a substantial amount of money invested, right? And just plowing forward is normal. I mean, it's really just that simple. And just to clarify the question on 103, our intent is all of that will be landscaped and there will be no access.
No way for somebody to get
No
through.
way. We don't want anything to do with that. There's not the space. It'll be landscaped. You'll have the driveway from 103 and then landscape to the toe of the hill as it sits now. And that's it. There won't be no access to get through there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Are there block walls behind those townhomes between
So-
there and Washington Fields?
Yeah. So Washington Fields Road, and then also along that line that everybody was referring to, the easement line, the intent is to extend that to the hill as well, in addition
All
to
the way across.
landscaping. And so we're trying to be enclosed, right? Enclosed community and just with that wall on the edge. And so, yeah, there won't be any way to get through there.
Bob, are we still on track as Commissioner Hanson in the conditions about the pool as far as when it's being built and all that? That's still.
Yep. No,
okay.
we're not asking for anything. We're just wanting to continue.
Yeah.
That's it. And we ended up at first, we were looking at it like starting at the south end and then just doing phase 1. And then it ended up growing into phase 2. And then it ended up going into phase 3. And then we're working with the city with some of the sewer going through the project. And it's just growing. It's just taking more time. We anticipated doing essentially one phase at a time as illustrated. And then maybe halfway through starting phase 2 and going through. But like I'm talking about now, we're doing all of phase 1 and 2, and we're working our way through all of this other stuff, working our way north. Yep. That's the phasing plan right there. And so it's just substantially more, all of it and it's just taking some time. That's all. So no exceptions whatsoever to any of our previous approvals whatsoever. Renderings, buildings, nothing, all the same.
Awesome.
What's your time frame on having the whole thing built out?
The whole thing will obviously will be market driven, but the way the market is right now, I'm sure that they will hopefully here in the next, I don't know, Brandon might have a better idea than me, but I would think that we're roughly about 60 days from 1 and 2. And then from, getting to that final plat stage in that area of paving, but then the entire project, it's going to take some time because we're going to have, I would guess that you're probably it's probably going to take 3 or 4 years by the time because it's owner builder, right? So they're developing lots and building homes. And so it's going to take some time to get all the way through there to work through that. I think that that's just my opinion based on the capacity of, trying to build all those units and everything. There's a lot there for one builder to build. But I'm sure they're going to go as quickly as they can.
Bob, is Commissioner Hanson, is 10? Do they own 10 as well, the commercial piece?
So it was, yes, well, actually, as of this moment, I do not know that. I don't know for sure. I had heard that they had sold that portion. Oh, okay, cool. So they have sold it. And so that was all part of the project to begin with. And then it sounds like this gentleman has purchased that corner property, and the intent is to leave the zoning as is. And well, obviously this isn't a zoning meeting, but the phasing is, and I don't, he could probably talk about the phasing of, or when he's gonna construct that. I'm not a part of that.
And you guys don't, I guess one of my questions is going to be, you don't build this around an anticipation of what that's going to be.
No, it has nothing,
Never have,
no
never will.
earmark. Well,
Doesn't matter.
the rooftops are in this area, as everybody knows, is fantastic, right? There's so many rooftops here that, in my opinion, it would not govern when you start construction on the commercial parcel.
Okay. It's such a hot area that I just thought I'd ask for a comment on it. So, but yeah, I get it.
I would assume it would start as quickly as they want to. Yeah.
If I wanted to ask the gentleman back there to come and, is that appropriate? I'm kind of interested what we're going to do with this.
Sure.
All right. Would you please state your name for the record? Thanks.
Bronson Bundy.
All I want to know is anything you'll tell us about 10. That's such a hot topic. Anytime this area comes up, it came up. A lot of people came when we saw the housing development that's on the docket right now. Across the street on the other corner, we've had several times in my tenure here. So this particular one, just curious where it's at, what your thoughts are.
We are moving forward right now. We've met with city staff. Probably start the process very short. There's obviously a lot of attention and
yeah,
people are wanting to move in there. So
do you have an idea? Are you willing to tell us now what you guys are planning there? Or do you have a plan? You must have.
There will be some amenities that the residents will like, we think.
Okay. All right. You know what I want to ask you, but I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay.
Water
Yeah,
park? Are
just-
you asking for a water park?
Well,
Just so we know, there's not an approved design for that yet.
Right.
It hasn't been. So
It's PDC, so we got to come in with all that.
so they'll come with their design, like you've done with the zoning's in place for PUD commercial. They just have to have an approved design and use through a public hearing, through you and the city council to get that. So,
yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate it. Commissioners, let's see, boy, again, Kathy, I've already forgotten. Did I close the public hearing?
No, you have not.
All right. I opened it though, right?
You sure did.
500 again. All right. Commissioners, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Sheila. I propose we close this public hearing.
This is Bullock. I'll second.
I've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, public hearing's closed. Any other comments or questions for staff or the developer representative? If not, I'll look for a motion on this particular item.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I'll make a motion to approve preliminary plat for Heritage Place subdivision located at 2000 South Washington Fields Road, based on the two findings and the 16 conditions noted by staff, and send it on to city council for consideration.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
Got a first by Commissioner Anderson. I've got a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting, Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Musso.
To be consistent with myself and everything else, no, nay.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Bullock.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. We'll send that to city council with a recommendation for approval. We will move to item number 9A. This is an item that's a zone change that was tabled from July 21st.
No, it's been tabled, right?
actually, this item is asked to be withdrawn, but because we tabled it, we have to put it back on, put it on the agenda, but it has been officially withdrawn. They'll come back at a later date. I think they're rethinking this lot size, instead of the RA half, thinking of something different. So it's been withdrawn. And so we'll see it sometime in the near future,
Okay.
a different proposal.
So we do not need to open and close a public hearing
No,
then?
we just let it be known on the record it's been withdrawn, but
All
we
right.
had to keep it because it was a public hearing tabled. We can't just pull it off like something else.
All right, item number 9A is being removed. We will go to item number 10A.
Well, 9A is not removed. It was called and withdrawn.
Oh, is that the better word? Withdrawn?
Yeah, and just leave it there.
Okay, we'll move to item number 10A. Do I need to have a public hearing? Just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. All right, item number 10A.
Close it.
Who's
Let's
the dumbest guy in the room?
Let's open one. Yeah. Let's open one and just leave it. All right. Sorry, Kathy, scratch all that. Okay. Item number 10A, City Code Amendment. Public hearing for consideration and recommendation to City Council. A City Code Amendment amending Title 10, Chapter 3, Section 3, Secondary Access and Landscape Strip. Title 9, Chapter 2, Section 7, Noticing Requirements. Do I need to read all this? Title 9, Chapter 2, Section 7, Noticing Requirements. Title 10, Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 2, Minor Subdivision. The applicant, Washington City, Drew Ellerman. Turn the time over to you, Drew.
Thank you. It's a night of house cleaning per city code, and we'll get into that. Oh, no. This is, I'll explain where we're at with that. And you'll appreciate it. I hope. I'm going to break this up into two parts because we're changing the Title IX, which is your zoning regulations, just a little bit, thanks to new state statutes. And then we're going to go back and fix some things on the subdivision ordinance that have just been nagging. One thing that was left off, another thing that was actually dropped accidentally by a codifier, and I'll get into that. But we'll start one of two. Changes and amendments. This is actually a section within the zoning regulations, 9.72. A goes on, and I've written it taking out what was previous there, and I'll just kind of explain. In the red, I'll just say, just to note, we're wishing to drop current language stating a 14-day published notice go out. Also, the posting of a sign at each location. So because according to new state statute, actually the state dropped it. It used to be 14 before I started working here 15 years ago, but this city never changed it. You know, the state dropped it down to 10 days. Now the state doesn't have that. I mean, what we're changing it to is, in case they change it again, is what we're saying here, is that we are just going to have it whenever, as per our noticing, will be as per state code annotated. We're not going to put a date, how many days, whatever the state is at the current time. If they bump it back up to 18, if they go to 2, if they go to whatever it may be, we don't have to come and amend our code anymore. We're just stating here that our noticing, proper notice will be as per Utah code annotated, and leave it at
So
that.
what is it currently?
Currently is 10. Okay.
And technology's really influenced the noticing statutes. It used to be you had to post it, physically put papers in certain locations. And now there's websites and just the ability to publish things electronically. And so I don't know what the next generation of technology will be, but I'm sure that noticing will continue to evolve.
And just to let you know, you used to also have to put it in a paper of local print. Okay.
These guys are young. They don't know.
Now they have what paper, are they thinking, is that a paper I wrote to school? Newspaper. You remember what newspapers are? Some people don't even know what they are, but anyway, so those aren't required. So what we've decided to do is just drop any time frame. We're just going to say our noticing will be as per Utah code annotated, and we'll leave it just at that. Everything else stays the same in this particular paragraph A.
Okay, so my question is then, so currently when you notice people, you take however big a radius it is as per the county, and you send out notifications to those individuals. So will that change at all?
No, that's the 10-day one anyway.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we do anyway. That's now you got to understand the noticing about an item, then the public hearing notice are two different, they're separate things. Even though they're always, seems like they're tied together, but they're not always tied together. So it's still 10 days for both of them. Okay, we're required that we send it out 10 days prior to a notice to them. Okay. It also said you had to post a sign in front of every property. That's now gone. Now, what you don't know is our state legislators just passed recently that based on your population, you have to post plate things still on public properties based on if I have a population, say of 100,000, I think it was up to 45 places. I think they realized all the big cities were coming back and saying, what were you thinking? You know, so that'll be changing in the next session. But right now we have to put it in, I think 11. We have to put it now. So you got to get creative. St. George was at the point because their population, they had to put out 41 notifications. They were going to put them at every park on bathroom doors. Nothing says it's at a public place. And to be honest with you, that's probably where it'd get read more than any other place in the city, at all their parks, in their restrooms. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny there. And you think about all the people that use the parks would probably see it more than other places that people were posting stuff, to be honest. So hopefully the state all of a sudden is getting a lot of feedback from the cities, especially the bigger cities. I think places like Salt Lake and Provo, and they're up to 60 to 70 notices they have to go out in particular places throughout the city. And that's out. It just doesn't make sense. So that'll be changing. That's why we're doing this too. Just whatever it may be, you know, we'll follow whatever the annotated.
So the updates to the statute, thankfully, the state hasn't moved away from the theory or the not the theory, but the concept or principle that neighbors are entitled to notice. That concept has not been removed from the statute yet. But the timeframes of how long you need to post it and where and how you're posting it, that's really what's changing. And it may be in 50 years, our kids are, the state says you just download it to the barcode of your neighbor, whatever the technology is at that time. But the principle of neighbors are entitled to notice remains strong in Utah statute.
In fact, we go above and beyond that, as you guys fully know. Our council a couple years ago said, because currently the way it's written, you just had to be 300 feet away. Okay, a notice to every property owner within 300 feet. Now you could be out in a parcel of land that there's only 3 properties around that one and only 3 notices would go out. And if it's undeveloped, then hardly anybody does it. Now, if those 3 properties are all owned by one person, it goes to one person. This council decided, because we had up in the Green Spring area that they didn't feel enough people were being notified, this council upped their noticing to a minimum of 30 unduplicated notices would go out. So your bubble could go anywhere from 300 feet, maybe up to 3,000 feet away. Right. We didn't do a distance. We just said it's the 300 feet by state statute to a minimum of 30 unduplicated property owners.
Now, is that from?
Every part of the parcel.
Okay. So if the
Every
parcel- if the
exterior
parcel's
part.
a quarter of a mile long, then basically a 300-foot radius.
Yeah, it's more than 300 feet then, because at 300, it's this way, that way, that way, and that way. Your bubble had to go out to be that. So believe me, Washington City sends out more than probably any other city I know of right now because of that 30 minimum than probably any other city in the state. So that has not changed. We're just dropping because we were always at 14 days. The state was at 10, but we can be tighter. We just can't be looser. But we thought, why sit and worry about if they are changing days anyway? Let's just say, like we do with the building codes. We just said, when the state updates their building codes, whatever the annotated accepted thing is by the state, our building codes automatically, you have to deal with it. You deal with it in your professions more. That it automatically kicks in. We don't have to come and amend our zoning ordinance or our city regulations. This helps keep us in that thing where we don't have to keep worrying about what they change.
Yeah, and just to parrot that, in other areas of our code where we are out of date, usually the issue that we're out of date on is the state has changed a time frame that we didn't keep up with. And so in theory, if we see the state changing things, we should get our ordinance changes to track those. And there's areas where we haven't. And so where the state's dictating things like timeframes that we don't get to bend, we prefer to just track those unless we want to go above and beyond them. It's the easiest.
Yeah, so moving along in that same section, we looked at A, talked about we're changing the date to just whatever the state. Well, as you go down in letter C, I just thought it'd be easier to rewrite the whole thing in red. This is the one that said we had to place a sign in front of her. The state says we don't have to do that anymore. Okay, so I just rewrote it. This is what we want it to read, as the one did in black. It was just easier to explain the did. This one had a lot. So Number 4, it shall be the responsibility of the applicant for such action to provide 2 sets of address labels necessary to provide the public hearing notices, as well as a listing showing the names and addresses of all property owners being notified pursuant to subsection C of this section. All costs incurred are at the applicant's responsibility. Okay, so this just drops the noticing to be posted at the place, that had to be out. And again, they didn't even put dates on that. It just said you had to have it posted out.
So when you say applicant, so if somebody's requesting a zone change, it's up to them to provide the names and all of the,
Yeah, but
haven't you guys done that before?
elsewhere in my code, it says what you have to do to get that though. This just says that we're dropping that. So when you do that, I have another code that we updated a couple of years ago that says we only accept, those labels, those names from one of 2 sources: a certified title company licensed in the state of Utah, or Washington County Recorder's Office, who has the record of all that. And if you walk into the county now and you just say, hey, I'm doing a notice, they already know what they need. They put their pin, they bring up the property. It's already programmed to go 300 feet out because every city's at 300 feet, except some of our people have to say, oh, there's only 28 of them. And sorry, can you make that 350 feet, 300, and they can drag it out farther. So they don't like when people from Washington come in, not city, but people, because if we don't have the minimum 30, they have to draw it out farther. So, but that's in a totally different section. This is just basically this number 4 in letter C drops the posting of a sign at the property, which is no longer required. Okay, so that's the 2 changes in the zoning ordinances. We've always wanted to go back and fix the date thing. And then when the state just recently came out and dropped the sign, we thought, well, it's a good time. We've got 2 in that section. Let's just clean it up now. So that's what's before you on that one of 2. It's in, again, 9.7. Or at 9.2, section 7. Any questions on that before I move into my 2 of 2? Now, when we updated the subdivision ordinance a year and a half, 2 years ago, it's been that long, Brandon, probably. It feels like it was just 2 weeks ago. We had a few misprints because we used a lot what was already in there. We just brought, again, things up to date. While our minor subdivision in the definitions was mislabeled. At the time, it used to be 20 feet. We're up to 26 feet for a flag lot now. So I wanted to get that corrected and put in here. So that's what's in red. So it's minor subdivision letter C in those definitions, changing from 20 feet to 26 feet. Simple change because that's what we've been doing for the last 12 years at least. Okay. Now, here's the other thing that changed is that, and Solus helped bring this about because I remembered specifically that we always had in our subdivision ordinance, there should always be 2 accesses unless you can accomplish something with a 600-foot less or less cul-de-sac, okay, which we would allow people to do a subdivision. I always remember there was being a requirement for 2 accesses. Well, guess what Drew forgot when he updated one of the biggest things that should have not been left out was accidentally left out. So letter V, contents of a preliminary plat, it shows all these things, A through up to whatever's the letter in front of V. Is it STU? Stops at U. Thank goodness I can get through the alphabet fast. So I'm adding V and W. V is putting in what I accidentally left out. It used to be letter L, but now it's letter V. Each subdivision shall have 2 accesses unless a single proposed access is less than 600 feet in length, measured from the center of an existing. So this is exactly how it was worded in the previous subdivision ordinance. Accidentally left out by yours truly. Well, I want to get it back in because I wouldn't have had Solus arguing with me about this or anybody else because I said, I know that's in there. I searched the whole thing, couldn't find it. Went back to the code that I had amended. There it was, letter L. I just went from and jumped over.
So
Must have went to lunch, came back and forgot where I was,
okay,
but
so because I'm truly the stupidest guy in the room, explain to me what this means. As an example, the subdivision that we approved, or well, we had all the debate over off the golf course along Telegraph for Cole West.
that's right.
They were going to put
The island.
Remember, we had
It was the island.
The island.
the island.
That's right.
Okay, because that only had 1 access.
Right.
So is that what this is referring to collect
Yes.
that?
And Solus up at the top that the council denied because of going down the hill. This now says you're going to have 2 of them.
Okay, so
Count.
what about then for additional amendments? Okay, so as example, up on Highland Parkway, okay, when we just did 2 weeks ago.
The views, you're going to bring up, I think, the views. Okay,
Okay, so now there's secondary access. They don't have one either.
that's right. And because we have a code somewhere that says that if a second one in the fire code, it says, well, actually, I think there's a state thing that says that if you can't provide something because of topography, but again, the council can override that. And they're going to look at this. Someone could come and say, and the views is a great example. Okay, we ended up getting a secondary one, but it's an emergency one through the trail system. But this is one, if I'm an applicant saying, I have this piece of property, and it's a beautiful piece of property, I just can't get a second access into it because of, I got sheer whatever. Well, the city can look at that and say, you know what, we're going to waive our requirement on the secondary because we've tried everything else we can and we just can't do it, but we still want to see development happen. The city council has every opportunity and right to say, you know what, we're going to not require that second one due to these circumstances.
See, my subdivision doesn't have 2 accesses.
You're absolutely right.
No,
You have 2 subdivisions in your area.
right.
So in essence, one doesn't have any if you get
There's
technical,
0.
right? If you guys shut it down, but you can't because it's public road. But the theory behind that is that they have really, they have one out of you, but that's going through
Is
another
that- so are
subdivision.
those, I mean, because that subdivision is 15 years old.
Correct.
So that was common practice back then.
I don't think
Or
it was
that was
common
before your time and
practice.
you can blame
It's
your
it's
predecessor.
quite a bit before my time, those are, yeah. No, they really are. And that's, again, you talk about evolution. We brought that word up earlier tonight. You see a lot of evolution, especially you'll see in this city. Going from the small town that it used to be when this, young man here was a young man, it's changed a lot. And the laws they had then, when he was growing up, playing around in the boilers and all that, there's been a lot of change.
Okay, so now I'll throw in another monkey wrench. So cul-de-sacs like what we did with Leanne's tonight, where you only have 10 or 12, you still don't have, is that what that 30?
That's the
foot-
600-foot rule right there is.
Oh, okay.
See, I can't have, I can have a cul-de-sac up too, and then I can be down to 1 access. So,
At least it gives them clear cut. And that way we don't have to sit here and debate whether or not
or let's go back to the one you debated on that's right above her. There's 2 cul-de-sacs on each end. Each one of them had to fall within the 600 feet on Sycamore Estates.
So how would you
Is that a
interpret?
daybreak?
How would you interpret something like, and again, this is an existing one, we're not trying to change it. River Shadow, where you've got a little drive-in and then it forks left and right.
They let them get away with that. There is an emergency access off of
There's
that over the
door,
river.
That gate back there. in the
That gate
sand.
back there is, and it's got a Knox box on it.
But if that was coming in,
Councils can approve for those as
if that
well.
was coming in today, how would that section V be interpreted for that type of a project?
That we would tell them, if you want relief, you're going to have to get it from the city council to make it an emergency one
Or find a second access?
or find a second access. Because they could have went to the Sandbergs to the south of them and tried to get it or work something out with them to bring another one that way. So that's how we kind of do that.
I
We
think it'll
allow
be,
temporary turnarounds at times for future development to pick up secondary ones as well.
it's going to be an interesting issue as our spaces that are developable tighten, because there's going to be parcels that should probably be, planned that are going to have a challenge.
They are. And again, this gets back to why we've always, as a city, since I've been here, always required stub roads. Because this helps break up and do those second or trinary. Was that the right word? I hope, a 3rd access or a 4th. We'd like to put stub roads out on subdivisions too, so that we don't, we kind of create those points. Okay. So anyway, so V was always in. The dumbest guy in the room, and at this moment was me accidentally leaving that out. Now,
That boat's getting bigger.
let's go back even farther.
You're gonna have to take
When I
shots.
first started here, before the codifieds were done with starting codifiers, number W or letter W used to be in the code, and they somehow accidentally left it out. Is that there was always landscape strips required on properties that, again, we're trying to stay out of the block walled corridors. I'm just bringing it back because now most developers have been good to work with the city and say, you know what, I get it. You kind of have a precedent set. We're not going to sit and fight. but it hasn't been in the code technically for a long time. So I'm thinking while I'm redoing my subdivision ordinance, I might as well get it back in there. Okay. So that's why you see it here tonight. It's not by anything else other than I've been wanting. And again, I neglected to put it in when I fixed this thing. But again, after you go through and rewrite a whole subdivision ordinance, certain things in your mind just don't.
You know, the only thing that I have an issue with that is that then it creates every single subdivision has to be a PUD.
No, it just has to have an HOA,
Well, it has to have an HOA. Okay.
or you can have it owned. I've got 2 subdivisions right now that have, it's owned by the people. Now, they've all agreed in the subdivision. There is an agreement with all in their HOA, CC&Rs. They take care of that.
Yeah. see,
But you could get someone to fight that and break it, but it still would fall back on those property owners for that. So,
Well, and the problem with an HOA is then, you know, like my subdivision, okay? And my HOA expense isn't that much. It's $80 every 6 months. But the only thing that they do is quote unquote, maintain that out.
your landscape outside the wall.
80% of the HOA fees goes to pay an HOA management company to do the accounting, you know,
Yep.
which is complete bullshit. Excuse
Well,
me.
I got an idea. Why don't you come back and say, I'll save everybody $40 a month and you be the guy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You guys are in the wrong business. We're all in the wrong business.
Well, yeah, if I would've known, I would've-
But anyway, I'm just telling you where this particular W came from was just for that, you know, and again, it used to be, my predecessor started out at 30 feet and then it got knocked down to 20. So now I will, in some cases, I think 10's fine. If we can get 15, it's proven to look the best. But this is where we could come for the city council, even the planning commission, say, you know, because of this, this and this, 10, all right, you know, and I think most time in an, you know, weird case, we had good enough reason, we would do 10.
Wall is now 10 feet, I think.
10, yeah, 10 feet is way better than none.
Well, no, it's their deal.
I don't think that we would have to. I think it's just, each one has to show that, you know, and
How they
if
handle
it's
it
in
and how
my
they handle
code,
it's
I
up
can
to
go
theirs.
back to the whole subdivision and, you know, again, we can because every property, you know, and if you read my plats, my notes say it's either, you know, and it's already a note in there that just says either the HOA or the property owners are responsible for you know, those guys. So I have it built into my plats already, my finals. It's a standard note on every single one of them. And I think it covers things like this.
Well, it's no different than your front yard.
That's right.
setbacks. I mean, you have to
Weeds,
take care of
everything else, you
those.
can go hit whoever it is. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You still have to mow your front yard and your side yard if it's 10 feet and you got a
It
block
falls
wall.
under
It's
nuisance.
It's still your property to take care of.
Yep. And if there is no HOA, it's still, then everybody knows that common area, it's owned by everybody in there. So everybody's responsible. So, okay. Any questions on that? I think.
While we're pondering questions,
Done.
we're going to open up the
That's
public
it.
hearing for this item.
Yeah, this is Rick with Book Gudgel. I've got a question for you.
All right.
This is Rick Meyer with Bush and Gudgel. And yeah, my question is for Drew. How does this relate to, you know, historically we've been able to put, per the fire code, 30 units or 30 lots on a single entrance. How does this relate to that previous code or whatever? Is this going to close everything off? You only have one entrance. You can only go 600 feet in. That would severely limit, I guess, the number of lots you can put in on a single entrance then, right?
Correct. But that 30 thing, Rick, has always just been the city being generous and trying to help out. Okay. I mean, really, it's not because it's been, you know, it used to be 50. I think when Councilman Seg Miller was on the council, I think we let one or two go to 50, you know, lots. And that's just because the fire marshal said, you know what, I'll be okay with that because he found a decent enough route that he felt comfortable with it. But we've kind of settled now on 30 and 31 is that number. And we're trying to stay consistent. That's why. But it's only been through the generosity. I'm not trying to sound like pat us on the back, but it's just been the city's been trying to work and help developers in that way. That's where that came from, to be perfectly honest. There's no code on it. In fact, the fire chief went through the code and there's nothing in there about 30, if I remember right.
Hey, this is Matt, the fire chief, actually. So when you look back into the history of that, we didn't have the code adopted. There absolutely is a code in the fire code, and it's the 30 number. So that's where that comes from. And we adopted that code. That's in an appendix in the International Fire Code. And the city adopted that appendix probably about 3 years ago. And that's where some of that stuff really changed. We used it as a guide, is my understanding before that. And that's why there was some flux to it. And then the choice was made to adopt those when we went to the 2018 fire code.
And now, Matt, those are temporary numbers though, right? I mean, that's based on, or is that permanent?
No, it doesn't really get into permanent or temporary, I guess. I'm not, well, I guess I should ask exactly what you mean by that.
Well, I'm just saying, it's because usually when we give people the 30 number, it's because they've got more houses coming and they want to be able to get as many out as they can before. Let's take Warner Gateway, for example. You and I are familiar with that one. Waiting for that second. One of my commissioners is very familiar with it as well. It runs down his street. But that one, because we knew more lots were coming, we let him go to that 30 number before the second one was enforced for a hard covered access. Remember that?
Yes, and and it does make sense. And so the 30 number, so it's really anything over that is where the fire code requires a secondary access. So 30 or under doesn't require it. It does give some, as you know, with all codes, it gives us some leniency in that, or some, especially if, like what you're talking about, we know it's coming in the future. We can move forward with some of that. But I think some of the challenges with that is we see some neighborhoods in the city where that was exactly what was supposed to happen. And those neighborhoods have been there for 15, 18 years, and that secondary access still doesn't exist because they've never moved to that next step.
Right.
And so I think that might be where some of that has been a little bit harder line. At 30, we'll let you go to 30, but as soon as you go to 31, you have to have that secondary access in place. But under that, the code doesn't require it. And there's other options in the fire code, of course, and we've seen some exercise that. To be compliant with the fire code, it doesn't mean that that is necessarily compliant with the wishes of the planning commission or the city council, but to be in compliance with that code.
So
I
Rick,
guess where my question is coming from is that my understanding of the 600-foot rule is that you just if you're going to go more than 600 feet, you just need to have an alternative route through the subdivision. But so you have more than one direction to go, but all those roads could kind of loop through the subdivision. But as long as you don't have more than 30 units in the subdivision, you can go with just one access. The roads themselves would be longer than 600 feet, but you wouldn't have any dead end road within that's more than 600 before you have it branch off and everything, So that was my understanding of the past, how it has been in the past. And I just wanted to make sure that's kind of how it was going to be moving forward. But
well, that gets back to the point I was saying. If we have a justification to be able to help bring a position to the council to go, to justify not enforcing that would be an example of what we just talked about. Okay. I think that's that avenue, what I was trying to refer to, that if there was something, you can always ask for that, but you have to have some good justification. So you could use that 30, I could say, well, your fire code says this. Okay. So I could then maybe entertain not doing that second one because of that. That's totally up for the council to decide, but I think it's best for the city as a whole, my subdivision ordinance, to require 2, and then under certain circumstances where it's difficult to meet that, find those alternative things that allow you a justification to not be at 2. Does that make sense?
sure. Yeah, great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
So Drew, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when you start getting into terrain issues? Because I mean, we're
Well, the
sitting here,
views is a prime example of that, right? The terrain is exactly it.
I know, because I mean, we're sitting here looking at, you could probably go through 30 of them in 10 minutes, looking at different subdivisions where they only have one access.
Well, again, and I'm gonna, hopefully, and Matt can stop me if he wants, but it's like, a fire truck can only go up a certain steepness of
Right.
street. So if it's beyond that, then that can't be used. So the 30 thing is not going to be except or whatever it may be. There's all these things we're going to have to look at on a case by case basis. But where we can, I'd like the code to say we want 2 access.
Yeah, there's literally tons of them though in the city.
There
When
is.
you start looking at it.
Yep.
And I think this is Matt again, and you're hitting on it exactly. And that's where we're trying to learn from some of that, because some of it has happened and not necessarily on purpose. But we are trying to learn. And Drew's hitting on it exactly. There's places where we knew that it just wasn't feasible. And Drew, you're exactly right. There is actually a grade. So the fire code doesn't allow a fire access road to count if it's over 10%. So anything greater than that you can't use it as an access road for the fire code. And so that's what we're trying to use or learn from. But then, like I said, we try to understand that there's some situations where you just can't make it work, and that's where some of that comes. And so that's where there are some trails that we put in there, and they don't truly meet the code, but we think they at least meet the intent, which is to have some other option at least to do that. Where you look at the totality of that neighborhood. But you're all correct in that there are a lot in the city that don't have that should, and that's what we're trying to, truly, I guess, stop now because it's not compliant with the code. And so moving forward, we know that we can control it. It's of course, it's tough to go back, and we'll continue and hopefully, fix some of those as we move forward. But we don't need to keep digging the hole any deeper just because there's some that exist that we know are a problem.
This is Commissioner Anderson. So Drew, I want to make sure I'm summarizing, I guess, the difference here and what they were talking about. So I mean, so we're talking about 2 pretty big differences in those standards, right? I mean, like if it's a 30 lot minimum, let's say they're like 100-foot wide lots and you got 15 on each side. I mean, that's 1,500 feet with no secondary access versus 600 feet. I mean, that is a huge difference in those 2 standards.
That's why you're going to look at each on a case by case basis right there. Because if I say 30 lots and they are 150 to 200 wide
Right, it's a long
versus a
way.
30 lots of my R16 at 66 foot
Right.
minimum, you can see it could be 3 or 4 times the distance. So that's why we're going to look and say, yeah, we may have done it for that 30 lot one, but that was only X amount of feet deep. Now you're doing 30, but you're 3 times the width on the lot. No, we're not going to do that on this one. And that gives you your rationale. So at least, we use the 30 to try to help offset some of these things, at least to give a justification, rationalization thing to get to a point to help people get to where they need to get, but yet not put ourselves in, the noose. Right.
No,
And then
I
all of
mean,
a sudden there's 60 because
based on
they made a bunch of flag lots,
was
in
it
there,
was it
so.
Rick? I think based on what he said though, I mean, is that a legitimate concern that 600 feet is too restrictive and it's going to make it tough to get lots in?
I wouldn't say that
not?
because cul-de-sacs, I've, worked for several cities and that's 600. I've seen them between 6 and 650 cul-de-sacs. You don't want them any longer than that without some offset of a road. You don't want to mess with I think Brandon might agree. I hope he's, but I've
Like on
looked
a
that
typical
over.
neighborhood around Washington, that's about 3 lots worth
Some of them are.
on each side, roughly. That's kind of typical around town.
Well, even your subdivision,
3
I
to
think is
4.
100-foot wide.
Ours are all 100. So like in our
So you're-
subdivision, that would be
you'd
3 lots.
Well, yeah, it could be, but you have the 2 in the back. Again, remember it's center to center.
So, yeah.
So you could end up with still 14, right? Is that if you had 2 at the end of it? So 6 on each side plus 2 at the back of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So, and those are pretty good size. They're, above average lots. So. All right. Any additional comments to this public hearing at this time? If not, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Bullock. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Shield second.
Got a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. Any other comments for the staff or questions at this time? And if not, I look for a motion on item 10A.
Actually, since we're talking about roads, I'm gonna put you on the spot. You haven't spoken the whole day.
Yes.
So I just wanna hear Public Works' opinion on this.
About, I
Just
guess, be more
the
specific.
changes about the fire access and the park strip.
Well, I'm gonna agree with Fire Chief on this, but where he's at, because it does say in our spec that, 600 feet on a cul-de-sac. But what we've always held to when you go over 30, that's where the secondary access comes in. I'm gonna agree with him on this one.
Then I'll ask you the same question that I asked Drew, is 600 feet too restrictive?
No, I don't think so. That's a long ways when you start looking at, a cul-de-sac, and they've got to come in and out on one cul-de-sac.
So representing Public Works, I mean, would you rather it say 600 feet or 30 lots? If you had to pick one or the other, what to be in the code?
I'm not gonna fall on this, so I'm gonna sit right back down and I'm gonna let you guys figure it out.
You want an oar for our boat?
That's actually doesn't, nope, I'm not gonna answer.
Would you
your
be
question.
okay with 100 with 600 feet in the code? Or would you
Not
be like,
gonna answer
that's
your question
pain in my
because
butt?
it's fire. This is strictly Matt. This is the standards. It says a cul-de-sac and exceeds 600 feet.
Can I say and or?
But
Can I
that's
say
in the
and or?
design. That's not, we're not talking about, on that aspect is not talking about fire. That is the design of a cul-de-sac roadway.
Right, but that does accomplish the same thing essentially, right?
I'm still not gonna fall on that sword. I'm gonna let you guys.
Yeah, Commission, this is Matt again. If I can chime in for just a quick second, I think you're kind of hitting on a piece of that, which isn't it truly kind of both to some extent. The distance piece is a whole different ballgame, and it's hitting into even water lines and how far down they go and pressures and things of that nature. That 30 pieces when it comes to access is when it looks at it from the fire code, it's looking at it from numbers. So how many people can I reasonably get in and out in one of these bad situations in one way? And that's where that 30 lot piece comes from. And so these two different numbers, on Drew's side of it is the 600 it's a whole, they're looking at it for, realistically from two different pieces. So is it a like you say, an and or a both, kind of as far as some of those limits? That's up to, of course, you guys to decide. Just might take listening to some of the discussion. But the fire code doesn't really get into those lengths because that's not really the challenge. It's really how many people can I get out in an emergency in one way in and out.
And this is Commissioner Bullock. Same as if we had condos in a cul-de-sac, you wouldn't want to go 600 feet and put condos down that many because you'd have well over 30 units in there. So it works both ways. We don't want 600 feet of condos on both sides, just like we had an issue out there earlier with the 50 duplexes backing onto the main road. Now you put those on both sides, that's 100 vehicles backing out into a 600-foot area. So the 30 is also in there with it. So it's working both ways with the fire code and with this.
I think math will help you in this. Let's take your subdivision. If I take the 30 and I put 2, I'm going to be generous and put 2 on the end of the cul-de-sac. That leaves me 28. That's 14 on each side. If they're 100 feet wide lots, do the math. 14 times, I've got 1,400 feet now. I'm almost 2 1/3 because you see, so the number, I'd rather have the footage and you work out the footage. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and Rick, if he's still on, may not agree, but most of them I don't get engineers and developers gawking about the 600-foot cul-de-sacs. It's the secondary, just sometimes that's the hard thing I don't have many of them coming, man, I wish you weren't at 600 feet, because most of them I think are used to using that. Again, I think it's a pretty standard thing in a lot of cities. So I don't think the 600 foot's the problem, so I'd rather kind of leave it like we do and let people come in and ask for something if it's different. And if they have good rationale, we say, you know what, makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, nope, sorry, you'll have to come with different design. Because if that kind of helps, but again,
Yeah, the only reason I'm trying to flesh it out is I'm trying to get everybody, planning and public works and fire sort of on the same page is all. I'm just trying to look at it from all the different angles. I mean,
I think
with
they are.
with
I
what
think
what
they
you were
are.
saying,
I think they are because, it's 600 feet, but it's also
right? But do we need to say in here
units.
like
But this is what
600
we-
feet,
yeah.
but no more than 30 lots?
The beauty about this is what we've been doing. It's just not written.
Right.
in
No,
your-
I know that, but-
So we're kind of somewhat on the page because this is what the city's been living by, but, through our access management, through all the other things. This is what we've been enforcing almost the whole time I've been here. It's just that sometimes, over time, things got accidentally let off or moved or whatever. So if that helps your thought process, this
Okay.
is what we do.
Would that, I guess, Brandon, would having both in there saying, 600 feet, but no more than 30 lots? Or is that already a given because it's in the fire code?
Right.
Okay.
And we use it as a help when we get into those sticky situations. That's what we can say, well, the fire code allows us to do this. So where we can use it, we're going to use that. If that helps you. So it's just a good tool to have there on the shelf saying, oh, by the way, I've got this thing that says, here's a good justification why we can approve this because boom, this.
All right, gentlemen, I'll look for and lady, I gotta remember to say that. I'll look for a motion on item number 10A at this time.
I'll make a motion that we as a planning commission recommend approval for the proposed amendment to the zoning regulations, specifically Title 9, Chapter 2, Section 7, changes and amendments. Also Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 2, definitions, minor subdivision, letter C. Also Title 10, Chapter 3, Section 3, preliminary plats, excuse me, subsection D2, content and preliminary plat on to the city council. Thanks for writing that.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second that.
All right, I've got a first and a second individual voting. Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item 10A passes unanimously. We'll send that to city council recommendation for approval. Commissioners, is there anything else this evening that you would like to bring before the body at this time?
I have a request for Kathy, if that's okay. But on all of our individual sections or items, 4A, 4B, 4C, if on all those individual papers, if you could just label them 4A, 4B, 4C, 8B, whatever.
On the report?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for Eldon and I. So
Oh, sorry, Kathy. I'll let them go back to sleep.
and let me let me just pull one up. So I want to make sure I get what you're.
Because I print them and then I go and write on there what they are, just because I'm stupid and I have to have them printed out for me.
On this particular thing is what
Yeah,
you
big
want,
vote.
right? Is this what you're saying on this report?
Yes.
You want me, hearing date action, we can say item 4A, preliminary plat for
Yeah.
approval on Liberty. That's what you want, is
That's
this to
what I want.
coincide with the
Yes.
exhibit 4A?
Yes.
Because when you open up 4A, let me come out of here. And I'm just, let's just say I'm an 8A, because that's what we're 8A.
Okay.
So you see this up in your thing, because up in the corner, when you open up yours, it looks like this as well.
I pull that up and I write.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So we can
That's-
either put it up there on the top, or you tell me where you want it, gentlemen, and wait, I don't know, that's gonna have to wait You guys made all debating on where you want it. I'll put it.
Just put
Put
it.
it somewhere.
I'm going to put it on the action requested after the date. I'm gonna, right in here,
Perfect.
it'll say 4A preliminary plat 4.
Right. I'd
Does that
appreciate
help?
that.
Do
Do you,
that be-
do you know where that is before you make your agenda?
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, we do. Because Kathy, when we do our reports, the agenda's set. Because we have, we get that ready to go. So when I do all my reports, I'm looking at Kathy's agenda. So it'll be easy for us to say 5B.
Okay, that's fine. I just don't
7B.
want to,
Right.
I'll
I just
put
don't,
it-
I just don't want to make it too hard for you guys.
It won't be that hard. I can put it there, or, I can try to go up top and make it really big and bold, but.
That's what I do, but you can do what you want.
Well, I could add one more thing, just say, agenda item. Maybe that's what I'll do in between like this hearing date and this action requested, I'll say agenda item in dark, and then over there it'll say 4A, 3B. That,
If you double click at the top, the header, then it'll put it on every page of that item.
well, right here, it kind of shows if you go up, if you open, well, I don't know if yours is opening up like this. No, it won't. This is
Ours
on my
is.
Zoom only.
Mine
that I
opens
see.
like
See
that.
where it's up here? That's just because I'm in Zoom.
Right.
I don't think your
Well, you can't-
iPads,
you
your
can't print it
iPads
in
don't show
that.
it like this, I don't think.
Mine does.
You can't print it like that.
That's right. Can't print it.
No.
That's all.
Oh, it does
He's
go
just
up
talking
there.
about printing.
Yeah.
It is up there,
On the
but
PDF.
but it's still, I think it's best, but if you do anything down there below, that disappears,
Correct.
it goes
Yeah,
ghost.
yeah, right.
I'm gonna add a line, and Eldon and I will hear, between hearing date and action requested. Or somewhere, it could be the first one.
That's my anal portion coming
Well, you're
out,
fine, because you
ACD
know
or
what?
whatever it
To
is.
be honest with you, in the previous place I worked, that's how we did it as well. So I have no problem. When I came here, they just didn't do it. And now I'm thinking, I used to do that at my other city I worked at years ago. So it's not gonna be out of, and Eldon's new enough still in this, he'll be okay. Yeah, he'll be okay. We'll be glad to do that.
All right. Well, staff, thanks again for everything you did. Commissioners, Commissioner Tupou, welcome again. Look forward to having you. And I look for a motion to close the meeting this evening.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
She'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're on your own. Thank you.